Good morning. Um, I'm not feeling well today, so um, dang it. So I don't feel like reading Karen Reed docs. I know we were gonna do that today, um, but I think I'm just gonna do Phil Spector. We might go a little bit long with Phil, so we can do Karen Reed docs tomorrow. I think I'm gonna rest some today. But we can do this. I'm good for this. I just don't feel like reading 40 documents. But we can do this. I'm still a little bit confused because no, Judy, don't start now. I can do this. I just don't feel like reading 40 documents. um I'm confused. Are we talking about with all these drink orders and everything? Is this the night that Lana died? Hey Terry, is this the night she died or is this a different night? Because I'm confused now. Because I thought he was at the House of Blues with Rami that night, not Kathy. I'm so confused. Because they keep talking about all the alcohol he consumed the night that he was there with Kathy and that Lana was there. And he's like, go get Lana. But then we're saying, but I thought he didn't meet Lana until the night that she died. Yeah, see, that's what I thought too. But I'm confused because they're going so in depth into the night he was there with Kathy. But I was under the impression that he didn't meet Lana until the night that she died. But he met Lana that I don't know. I'm so confused right now. Maybe it'll get cleared up because we have a detective. I think it was a detective, a cop anyway. And hey, Flash, a cop and another waitress from House of Blues. It is. It's getting confusing. And then we've got the hearing, the out of the presence of the jury thing with the fingernail or whatever it was. They're jumping around too much. I don't know. Maybe this detective or cop or whoever he is will clear some of my confusion up. I don't know.
ER.
Thank you. If you would sit back, put the microphone right underneath your chin, it'll be easier on you and we can hear you better. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. As a matter of housekeeping, there's a couple of items that I left. 8.5 by 11 appears to be photostatic copy of a what's called a punch detail report. I believe Mr. Berghammer will give us a better idea of what detail report people 16 for identification.
So marked.
There's a 3-page document, all 8.5 by 11 photos.
By the way, Flash, you are right. Dr. Lee does testify outside the presence of the jury. It's just later because when they were doing all of the hearing outside the presence of the jury, he was in China at the time. But he testifies later outside the presence of the jury. So they keep interrupting the actual trial with this hearing about this fingernail, which originally they thought was a piece of tooth, but I guess it was a piece of acrylic fingernail.
I'd like to have these marked in order, or cumulatively as people 17.
So marked.
For Wendy, Your Honor, this 3-page document bears bait stamp 2789, 2790, and 2791.
Thank you.
There's also an 8.5 by 11 color photograph. On the bottom right, it indicates 9:11 p.m. That bears no significance other than identification purposes. It's people's 18.
So marked.
Thank you. And finally, there's a CD or DVD. I have a DVD that I'll mark in just a second with Wendy. It's actually in one of the computers. I expect to play 5 short clips from a surveillance video camera that there. Mr. Berghammer, tell us what you do for a living, sir. Or let me ask it this way. What did you do for a living back in 2003?
In 2003, I was the general manager of the House of Blues on Sunset Boulevard.
How long had you been working for the House of Blues by February of 2003?
At that time,
Manager at the House of Blues.
If you didn't hear me, I'm sorry. My bad. I thought this was a cop. I don't know why I thought this was a cop, but it's not. It's the general manager of the House of Blues. So we're still talking to House of Blues people. Darn it. I want to know if this was the night it happened. Why are we still talking about a different night at the House of Blues? I don't understand.
Did you become familiar with the manner and mode in which the House of Blues kept their business documents and records of employment in the regular course of business? Were there contracts of employment paper?
offers that were made verbally and the paperwork to fill it out.
In the weeks preceding the month of February 2003, was there an employee by the name of Lana Clarkson?
Yes, sir.
How long had Miss Clarkson been, or at what point had Miss Clarkson started at the House of Blues on Sunset?
Approximately 6 weeks prior to
February 3rd?
February 3rd, yes.
All right, take a look at the overhead. I believe this is people's 14 for identification.
I'll accept your representation. I don't know. I just mark things as photos or records, so I'd have no way.
People's 14. Mr. Berghammer, do you recognize the woman depicted in that photograph?
Yes, sir.
Who is that?
That's Lana.
When did you first meet Miss Clarkson?
I met Miss Clarkson probably a year prior to her working at House of Blues, but more formally about the 6-week mark out.
Ultimately, were you her direct supervisor at the House of Blues?
Ultimately, I was, yes.
Did she report either through a chain of command or directly to you?
Was through a dual reporting line through her direct
Supervisor
of the foundation room, and then ultimately to myself because of the high profileness of the foundation room.
All right. Describe for us, those of us who are uninitiated, what is the foundation room?
It was a private.
AJ was young back then. He's still learning. Give him a minute. He gets very much better. Very much better. He gets better.
Membership club, where 25% of the membership fee went to the education of children. It was a 501c3 portion of the membership, and the room was designed for an intimate setting where the actors and people of our industry could relax prior to a show.
Describe the clientele that were allowed membership at the foundation room.
Well, the clientele level would be an A-list Hollywood type of clientele is what we traditionally went after for our members.
Did you know Phil Spector?
Yes, sir.
How did you know him?
Well, I met him numerous occasions throughout my time at House of Blues.
Was in fact Mr. Spector a member of the foundation room?
Yes, sir.
What was the standing order for staff, either wait staff or bartenders or hostesses or security, with regard to the clientele at the foundation room?
To treat them with kid gloves.
Which means what? In the service industry, how do you describe that?
to exceed their expectations, to make sure that they that their desires and their experience at House of Blues exceeded their expectations from food, beverage, and service-related issues.
Did the House of Blues have a special entrance in the back for the foundation room?
Yes, sir.
Was there special security set up, Mr. Berghammer, for entrance and exit to and from the foundation room?
Yes, sir.
Was the foundation room open to the general public?
No, sir.
How did you facilitate, as the general manager, how did you facilitate the security, if you will, for this A-list clientele?
Well, we had two different levels of security. There was a security entrance at the bottom of the staircase that would be in the parking lot.
And I'm going to stop you right there and ask you to take a look at what's being displayed on the overhead. Do you recognize what's depicted in that photograph?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, this is, for the record, I believe it's People's 18. It's been previously marked. A photograph of it. Describe for the jurors, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but describe for the jurors what they're looking at with regard to the foundation room.
Currently, what they're looking at is the slope tin roof is the tin roof directly above the entrance to what we would call the foundation room entrance. There would be a security guard with a podium directly there with a list that would check off our members and or wristband them to make sure that they could get to the private elevator to take them to the third floor.
So this might be the first point of entrance, some of us might consider the first velvet rope, correct?
Yes, sir.
Beyond which the normal guy like myself might not be able to get past, correct? Oh, you can say it, Mr. Berghammer. Absolutely, you can say it. I don't take offense.
Absolutely.
All right, once inside.
It's the one time.
Taking enough abuse over here. Once past that particular security point, what does one find inside that either elevator room or whatever's inside? Tell me about what's up on the third floor.
On the third floor, we had our green rooms, which would hold our bands and their executives. We would have the foundation room, and then there would be my office.
Is there another entrance? Well, is the foundation room literally, and I noticed that the House of Blues is multi-level, correct?
The 3 floors.
All right. Is the foundation room actually on the top level?
What's actually on Sunset Boulevard, the building is built on a slope.
Okay.
So what you're seeing actually is 3 levels below Sunset Boulevard.
So I'm not looking at the side of the House of Blues on which the foundation room sits.
On the third floor of this is the Los Angeles skyline.
You see this stairway?
Correct, that's your floor.
Right there.
Yes.
Okay, so that might be either an entry point or an exit point for someone going up or down
The staircase.
the staircase as opposed to the elevator.
Correct, Scott.
What was Lana Clarkson's job in 2003, specifically February of 2003?
She was hired to be what we call the door host. That was responsible for a bit of security, but more of guest relations.
What did that include? What does guest relations include?
Her job responsibilities, more than anything, was to make sure that she greeted our members, making sure that she connected eye contact with them and welcomed them into the room. Also checking for proper credentials, because there were people on occasion from band green room that might want to get in the room that didn't have a wristband that would allow them in. So her job would also to be identifying people going in and out of the room.
Was she under the aegis of the security portion of the House of Blues employment, or the wait staff, or?
It would be, she was under the security umbrella.
Were there other members of security for the House of Blues?
Yes, sir.
Describe the security in general, if you would.
Well, the venue had 13 entrances and exits, so we had quite a large staff of security, up close to 50 at times. But for the most part, on the first and second floor, security more were individuals that handled the general public for shows. They handled more life safety issues, crowd control, making sure people properly had tickets, things like that. On the third floor, the individual that we hired for that needed a little bit different of a decorum, the ability to handle high-profile members and be able to communicate with them in a more professional manner.
Is that what Lana Clarkson was specifically hired for?
Yes, sir.
So the security that would handle crowd control, for instance, might be big guys,
That would be a good way to put it, yes.
bouncers.
We didn't really have a bouncer mentality. It was more of a crowd control, making sure people were safe and just keeping people. But if indeed they had to step in and handle something that went south, that they had the ability to do that.
That specifically was not what Lana Clarkson was hired to do, correct?
No, sir.
Okay. I mentioned in my opening remarks when I was marking a couple of items of evidence, of potential evidence for identification, a punch detail report. Do you know what that is?
Yes.
I'm gonna. Okay. Go ahead and just highlight the top portion of that. 16. Okay. Your Honor, may I approach it? The witness has a problem reading this. I don't know if you can read what's up there, but I've got, well, it looks like you're going to strain. Would you like to see this copy?
I would if that did.
Ma'am? Thank you. This is People 16. Take a look at that. Do you recognize that document?
Yes, sir.
What is that?
That's a punch detail report that would come from our point of sale system and our timekeeping system.
On that punch detail report, does that indicate when certain employees punch in and punch out for the night?
Yes, sir.
Does the punch portion refer to the old-fashioned punch clocks?
Yes, sir.
All right. In fact, nowadays it's computerized, correct?
Yes.
Does that punch detail report, should you go ahead and highlight that line for me? Does that punch detail report indicate anything having to do with employee Lana Clarkson?
Yes, sir.
Describe that for us, please.
It has the name of our crew member and also the crew ID, which was handed to each crew member when they were hired. It would have the date of they're actually working.
Okay.
It would have the time in that they would clock in, and the time out when they would clock out of the POS, which is a point of sale system, which we used also for timekeeping records. It would have their position. This has foundation door host / security. They would have their pay rate, their regular time and their overtime, and any miscellaneous type of.
They need to learn how to use the Elmo. Everything is always blurry. They got it to clear up yesterday, or the part we watched yesterday, for like a minute, and now it's blurry again.
Pay and door hour information.
Does that punch detail report refer to the date of February 2nd, going into the early morning hours of February 3rd, 2003?
Yes.
Is that document kept in the ordinary course of business?
Yes.
Are you familiar with how that document is prepared?
Yes.
Could you describe that briefly, how it's prepared? How does the information get onto that document?
Well, at the beginning of every week, our managers pre-program the point of sale system where their schedules are kept. So they're kept within the system, and then a crew member a schedule would be created from this. It would be handed out to the staff members as well as being posted. The crew members then would come for their shift and they would be able to punch in. If they were not scheduled, they would not be able to punch in. And then at the end of their shift, they would punch out.
And these documents are kept at or near the time, or they're prepared at or near the time of the event, for instance, the same week of or day of even the event?
Well, this document is created every night. When we close the point of sale system, it would print a daily detailed report.
Mr. Berghammer, what time did Lana Clarkson punch in to go to work on February 2nd, 2003?
It shows 6:02 p.m.
And what time does it show that she punched out for the end of her shift?
at 2:21.
Is that the next morning?
Yes, sir.
All right, so that would be on on February 3rd, 2003, correct?
Yes, sir.
Taking a look at people's 17. The foundation schedule, you're on the police commission, but let me
Yes.
show you. I'm going to show you the actual document. It's a 3-page document. Do you recognize that document?
Yes, sir.
What is that?
This is our weekly schedule that we create for our show schedule, events going on in our foundation room and our staff members, their schedule.
Does that also show, well, I guess that last phrase answered my question. That document also shows the scheduling for each individual, where they're going to be, what time they're expected to be in, and what shift they're working.
Yes, sir.
Is this kept in the regular course of business as well at the House of Blues?
Yes, sir.
Or it was at the time in 2003?
Yes.
And was this prepared at or near the time of the event? In other words, to the week prior or the day prior of the actual scheduled event?
Yes, sir.
And obviously, the information on this document, it's important to maintain its accuracy to make sure that all shifts are covered, et cetera, correct?
Yes, sir.
Does this look like a true and accurate copy of the foundation room schedule for the week of, well, at some point, I can't read it as well as you can. Looks like January to,
to
I'm sorry.
Sorry, you can't. You have to, excuse me, you have to be very careful when talking over someone. The reporter cannot separate voices. All right.
Thank you. Go ahead and explain that for us since I can't figure
It
it out.
started on Monday, 1/27, all the way through Sunday, 2/2.
All right. And is there a part of that document, if not on the first page, part of that document that indicates Lana Clarkson's schedule for that particular week, specifically February 2nd, 2003?
It was, yes, it does.
And where is that? On page 2?
I have it on page 2,
Okay.
on the far right corner, second line from the bottom.
And if you look on the overhead, there's the second line from the bottom has just been highlighted. Whose name is that?
Lana Clarkson.
And you indicated far right corner, meaning the box to the far right.
Yes.
And what's the time? I'm sorry. Yeah, what's the time that's indicated on that?
6 p.m.
What does that indicate?
It says 6 p.m. top, which means that 6 p.m. was her starting time, and top meant that she was at the door of the foundation room.
Which is what you've already explained, kind of being the greeter or hostess for the foundation room guests.
Yes, sir.
I'm holding what appears to be a credit card receipt and or a House of Blues ticket. It's been previously marked as People's 13.
All right.
May I approach the witness?
Believe me.
You may need to look at this a little bit more closely as well. And I'll take that from you. Mr. Berghammer, do you recognize that document that you're holding, the copy of which is displayed on the overhead?
Yes, sir.
What is that document?
That is a POS guest check that gets created when orders are made for our guests.
Is that kept in the regular course of business?
Yes, sir.
Is there some reason why the House of Blues would insist on accuracy when creating these types of checks?
Yes, sir.
Describe that for us, please.
There's twofold. One, for inventory purposes, for us to be able to go ahead and track where product is distributed. And second, for any guest disputes that we might have over a guest check.
Based on your review of this document, can you tell, based on your review of this document, can you tell when the document was generated?
The document was generated at 1:59 a.m.
On what date?
on February 3rd.
How can you tell that?
It states it on the top of the guest check.
Is that date and time calibrated to the actual date and time? How'd you ask that question? Let me try it again. Is that an accurate date and time?
Yes, sir.
All right, and so it's calibrated to the computer.
Yes.
What does one Bacardi 1518.50 mean?
Bacardi 151 would be the product that was purchased, and 850 was the price that we charged at that time for it.
Do you see at the bottom of that document there appears some writing, P. Spector?
Yes, sir.
Do you know what that represents or what that stands for?
That represents the guest and their credit card.
Did you know whether or not Philip Spector, well, let me ask it this way. Is there another Philip Spector that belonged to the foundation room?
No, sir.
All right. Do you see Philip Spector in the room right now?
Yes, sir.
Where is he seated and what is he wearing?
He's seated across the room from me. He's wearing a lavender shirt and a tuxedo jacket.
Indicating Mr. Spector for the record.
Thank you. Is this the man that you've been talking about being a member of the foundation room? The only member of the foundation room named P. Spector, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Oh, hey, take that from me. Thank you, sir. There is a. Okay, go ahead and put that up. I'm going to ask you to take one more look at a second document that appears to be a guest check of some kind or a credit card receipt. There have been some deletions on this receipt concerning account numbers, et cetera, but does this appear to be a true and accurate copy of a House of Blues West Hollywood credit card receipt?
Yes, sir.
And how can you tell that?
It has the name of the property on the top, and then subsequent information that would support that.
Taking these two documents together, may I approach one more time? I want you to look at them side by side. Taking these two documents together, do they appear to comport with one another? In other words, the credit card receipt appears to comport with the guest check.
Yes, sir.
And how can you tell that?
Through the guest check number 3682 and the table number in our server.
All right. And the server was who?
Sophia.
Sophia Holguin?
Yes, sir.
All right. May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
You may.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Cross-examination. I'd like to take, how long do you think your cross is going to take? I'd like to finish the witness and then take a break. Unless you plan on being lengthy.
Sure.
Do you plan on being lengthy? You're thinking about it. We'll take our recess. Ladies and gentlemen. No. Keep in mind the admonition, sir. Step down. We'll take about 10 or 15 minutes. Don't discuss your case with anyone except the attorney or just for testimony. Thank you. All parties, jurors, alternates, and the witness are present as heretofore. You wish to reopen,
I
Mr.
do,
Jackson?
Your Honor.
All right.
Completely forgot about the DVD that I mentioned and unmarked. I think it's People's 19. I'd asked the witness to take a quick glance at an additional item that I'd like to mark as next in order for identification.
People's 20?
20.
Okay.
This simply includes 3 still photographs, and then I'm going to ask him if he recognizes these as compared to the videos that he's about to see.
All right.
May I approach?
You may.
Thank you. Take a look at these still photographs, Mr. and tell me if you recognize those 3 stills.
Yes, sir, I do.
How do you recognize them?
There are 3 photographs of different parts of the House of Blues.
Do you recognize the cameras or the perspective from which these photographs are taken?
Yes, sir.
Was there a security camera system, if you will, installed at the time of February 2nd, February 3rd, 2003?
Yes, sir.
Are these stills, or do these stills appear to be taken from the video camera, the surveillance camera that was in place at that time?
Yes, sir.
Concerning the lighting conditions and what appear to be pretty poor quality photographs, can you describe what that video system entailed as far as the camera system is concerned?
I don't quite understand the question. I'm sorry about that.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, have you reviewed in your capacity as the general manager, have you reviewed many of the footages
Yes, sir.
from the House of Blues security system?
Yes, sir.
And did you notice, or have you noticed any problem with color?
Well, routinely what we would find was that that dark coloring clothes often would come up light, either gray or sometimes white.
Why is that?
Because it was a nighttime camera system, because most of the action within our venue was done in the evening, so low lighting candles and or during a show where the lights would be very reduced.
All right. With regard to those cameras are the cameras that I'm gonna have you take a look at, the footage that I'm gonna have you take a look at in just a second. Is that almost a low light camera? Almost like an infrared?
Like an infrared camera, yeah.
All right. So my suit, although it's dark brown in color, might not look this same hue on this camera, correct?
It could, it could come up as the top being dark and the bottom being light based upon the coloration of the dark.
All right. Take a look. This may be very difficult for the jurors to see, but I think you have a better view of it in front of you. Do you see in photograph A of People's 20 a woman at the lower right part of the screen?
Yes, sir.
Who is that?
That's Lana.
Is that Lana Clarkson?
Yes, sir, Lana Clarkson.
The view in photograph B and the view in photograph C, where does that appear to be taken?
That is taken from a door that we call the loadout door from going into the parking lot, which load in, load out, where we often would have our guests go into the music hall area. There was a camera facing down towards the foundation entrance.
Okay. Taking a look at the lower two views, B and C on People's 20, do you recall the photograph that was previously marked as People's 18? Get it up on the overhead in just a second. You see that photograph?
Yes, sir.
Does the lower photographs, the lower stills, B and C, appear to be taken of the same general area that this photograph is taken?
Yes, but up about 200 yards.
Just from a different perspective?
Just from a different perspective.
All right. With that, Your Honor, if I may, there's no sound on any of these videos, so there's nothing to worry about transcribing. I'd like to play the videos in total and then ask the witness. Actually, I'll ask him a foundational question before we begin. Have you ever seen the video clips that I'm about to play?
Yes, sir.
You're assuming I'm about to play the same ones that I showed you
I'm
upstairs?
assuming, yeah.
Do they have time and date stamps on them?
Yes, sir.
I'll ask you the further questions when we get finished. Let's see. I'm going to play 5 clips for you in order, if you don't mind. As this is playing, Mr. Berghammer, let me ask you about the bottom portion of this video that indicates February 3rd, 2003, 1:44 and counting. What does that indicate?
That would be the date and the timestamp that the video was taken.
And is that maintained accurately and calibrated to the actual time and date?
Yes, sir.
All right. Does this appear where it says Olive Drive and top? Does this appear to be a video camera perspective from the top portion of the House of Blues, not the bottom parking lot portion?
This would be the entrance to the parking lot, where it would be the entrance to the Porch Restaurant.
All right, and you saw individuals get out of what appeared to be a dark black car?
Correct.
And then get back in the car and drive away?
Yeah.
Second video. What is this perspective, Mr. Berghammer?
That is from what we call the load in and out door, facing towards the foundation podium.
And you see where it says FR bottom from load in? Does that mean foundation room bottom?
Yes, sir.
Is it-
It would be facing foundation bottom from load in and out door.
All right. Do you see an individual standing there in what appears to be a long white jacket?
Yes.
Do you recognize that person? If you don't, just say so.
I do not.
Okay. Do you see where it appears to be a little bit blown out, in other words, overexposed? Were those brake lights?
Those are brake lights,
All
yes.
right. They
As the
appear
car's
whi-
facing going downhill.
And it appears white on this based on the infrared nature of the camera taking the shot.
Yes, sir.
And before we get to the next clip, just to the left of that, in other words, where the individuals appear to be walking, would they have been walking into or toward the foundation room entrance?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. The third clip. Does this appear to be the same camera angle, but just at a different time? Now we're at 1:58 and counting,
That's correct.
and that's 1:58 in the morning, correct?
Yes, sir.
Do you see what appears to be a black Mercedes in the foreground?
Yes, sir.
And do you see a person getting out of that Mercedes?
I as the video clip goes. I see some.
Do you see a person with his hand on the back door?
Yes, sir.
All right. The
Opening.
door is opening.
Yeah, somebody getting in it.
Does that appear to be a female with short blonde hair?
Yes.
All right. I want you to pay attention to this portion of the screen for just a second, if you wouldn't mind. Do you see the person with the blonde hair, dark jacket, knee-length skirt?
Yes, sir.
Have you seen other still photographs of that person?
Yes, sir.
Who is that?
That is Lana Clarkson.
And she appears to be standing at that location close to the, I'm going to say shoe shine booth.
That's what it was called, yes.
Okay. The fourth clip, please. Finally, what is this? Well, not finally, second to last. What is this view of?
That is from the upper left corner of the foundation room. It's a security camera angle overseeing the bar and kind of the middle area of the foundation room.
Do you see the female kneeling on a bar stool attempting, somewhat unsuccessfully, to blow out a candle?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you see the timestamp as 2:03 and counting?
Yes, sir.
Who is that female?
That's Lana Clarkson.
Mr. Berghammer, I'd like you to direct your attention to this portion of the bar for just a second and tell me when you see Ms. Clarkson reappear in this shot. Is that her?
Yes, sir.
And she's walking through toward the camera?
Yes, sir.
All right. And finally, the last clip. Does this appear to be that same camera angle?
Yes, sir.
The foundation room bottom, load in, load out?
Yes.
And do you see a black car with what appears to be brake lights on?
Yes, sir.
Do you see Ms. Clarkson in the center of the shot right there,
Yes, I do.
standing behind what appears to be the dark car?
Uh-huh.
Do you recognize the person she's standing with? Does it look like anybody you know?
Not off the top of my head.
All right.
Sorry.
That person is wearing a long white jacket.
From what I would know that to be would be Mr. Spector.
Do you see the two individuals, Lana Clarkson and the other individual, standing to the right of the car?
Yes, sir.
The brake lights just went out.
Yes.
Do you see Ms. Clarkson and another individual proceeding to the left side of the car?
Yes, sir.
And did you see a person get in the right side?
Yes, sir.
Did that appear to be a driver getting into the front seat?
Yes, sir.
What does the black car appear to be doing at 2:25:05 and counting?
It's backing up the parking lot to go out the other side and leave and exit.
Was there, Mr. Berghammer, any method in place for both male and female employees to get to their car after leaving at very late hours like this?
Yes, there was different methods. One, we had a crew van, which was supplied by our valet company, that would take our crew members to our off-site parking structure. And as well as if crew members had chose to park in a different area, that the managers would and security would walk them to their car.
Taking a look at the photograph that's been previously marked as People's 18 for identification, can you tell me where that crew van was normally situated at the end of the evening to shuttle employees back and forth?
Well, directly across from adjacent to this entrance, right? I'm sorry if I could show you this. The exhibit here has a rider van. It would have been on the right side of that. It's always on the corner of the of the parking lot.
May the record reflect that the witness is pointing to photograph C in people's, I believe that's people's 20. There's a Ryder van. Can you put the slings on? Let's photo C. May I put, maybe it's just easier for you to use the Elmo. We sure do. Technology at its finest. All right. You were indicating in this photograph C, which is now displayed on the overhead, an area to the right of the Ryder van. In other words, if that van were not there, you might see the shuttle van or the passenger van to the right of that. Is that correct?
It would be a white van.
And that's the van that was normally situated to shuttle both male and female
Crew members.
staff members, crew members to and from their off-site parking lot.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Good afternoon, Mr. Berghammer.
Good afternoon.
I introduced myself to you at the break, didn't I?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Jackson asked you a bunch of questions, and now it's my turn. Okay? And, okay. Okay, Mr. Berghammer, as I understand it, back in February, you were the general manager of the House in Blues on Sunset, and you had been the general manager for approximately 7 years. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The first thing I want to ask you is this. On February 3rd, 2003, is my understanding that you were not on premises. Is that correct?
That is correct.
In other words, at the house that morning.
That evening, that's correct.
Okay, excuse me, February 3rd, 2003. So the clips that you're looking at, you are witnessing those as a spectator. You weren't there personally to see that. Is that correct? Okay. And when was the last time you had been in the foundation room at the House of Blues prior to February 3rd? Was it the day before, a couple days before, or when?
That morning.
That morning. Okay. What time did you leave the premises that day?
I left about 1 o'clock that day.
Okay. Would that be 1 a.m. or 1 p.m.?
1 p.m. Right after gospel brunch. It was a Sunday.
All right. That was a Sunday. And when did you return?
The following Monday morning, about 9 a.m.
Okay. So from 1 p.m. on Sunday to 9 a.m. on Monday, you weren't there.
That's correct.
All right. And let's take a look at these clips if we can. Now, as I understand it, these are just clips, right? Portions of the tape. Am I correct in assuming that the tapes on these surveillance cameras, they literally run constantly? Is that right?
Yes, they do.
Okay, and that's for security reasons and also for protection reasons, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so let's take a look at number one if we can. Sudi, can you help, please? And where, as it goes, I'm going to ask you, where is this in terms of the building itself?
It would be on the entrance, for lack of a better term, to the right of this by about 10 feet. Would be the entrance to the parking lot. That is at the crest of the hill.
Walking around.
Yes.
Do you see, when you see him, is that Mr. Spector, as far as you can tell?
As far as I can tell, yes.
Okay. And in this clip, we see him get out of the vehicle, walk around, walk up towards, I guess, the stairway, and then walk back in
Yes, sir.
the car. Is that correct?
Yes.
You didn't see him fall or stumble on this video, did you?
No, sir.
And you didn't see him having any trouble with his motor skills getting out of the vehicle or getting back into the vehicle, did you?
Not to my recollection.
Okay. And there it appears that the vehicle is now leaving the scene. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Would you help me, please, clip number 2? And here we're looking at clip 2. We see the Mercedes pulling up, correct? And as the light flashes, that's the brake light. Comes out white because it's an infrared type camera. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, in this, you can see Mr. Spector. You see him walking?
Mhm.
Is that, yes?
Yes, sir.
We have to say yes.
I apologize.
That's okay, no problem. I know you have to say. His coat appears to be white, doesn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And we see him get out of the vehicle and on the screen go to the left, is that right?
Yes.
And there's a little curb area there, isn't there?
Yes, sir.
And he walked up over the curb area and disappeared out of our view,
That's
correct?
correct.
And you didn't see him have any trouble walking or negotiating the curb and going out of our view, did you?
Yes, sir.
Let's take a look at the clip for a moment, clip number 3, which is 1:58 hours. Okay. And here I think you indicate, again, brake lights on the vehicle. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's not, the brake lights are not the Mercedes, is it?
No, sir.
The Mercedes is parked on the lower left here. You see somebody getting out of the Mercedes at this time, correct?
That's correct.
I think Mr. Jackson answered that, but he had already gotten out when you looked up. And now that individual has his hand on the door, correct?
Yes, sir.
Which would be the rear left door, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And we see the door open, correct?
Yes.
And we see someone get in, is that right? You don't know who that person is?
No, sir.
Okay.
There's that wig. That's what he's got on now. That one. That's the only 3 I found in this article. Someone has dubbed this the wall of hair. What he's famous for was something that he dubbed the wall of sound. Some way he mixed his music. He called it the wall of sound, and that's what he was famous for. And so now, like, people have dubbed this the wall of hair.
And the door shut, and that individual who opened the door for that person gets in the car himself. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that looked like it was a male, didn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the brake lights come on, and again, they're white. And now, as I said, all these clips came from the videos of security cameras that are at the House of Blues for that, correct?
That's correct.
And before I get to the next step, do I understand it correctly that you have an integrity system in place and did in February of 03? In other words, when the tape is finished, you have a way of removing it from the camera and that's correct. As far as you're not going to the camera. I don't think so either. I needed to ask. Kind of thing. Could we please take a look at clip number 4? Okay. Now this is the first clip that we take a look, which is inside the structure. Is that right?
That's correct.
And this is the foundation room. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes, sir.
Do you see the Buddha room here?
The Buddha room is not in this photograph.
All right. So this is just a shot of the foundation room itself. Is that right?
The main room.
Okay. And as you take a look at that, I think you told Mr. Jackson that you do in fact see Miss Clarkson, and she, as he said correctly, appears to be trying to snuff out that light with that candle. Is that a candle?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and she's not having.
Sorry, guys. See, I try to be a regular streamer and show pictures and do what everybody else does, and StreamYard hates me and it crashes. I try to be a regular person, do the same thing everybody else does. I don't know. Well, come on. No, it was his wife. Actually, he wasn't married back then, so.
Very much.
And while we're waiting for this to play out, would you share with the jury, in February of 2003, in order to be a member of the foundation, while we're waiting for that to play out, I think you said that the atmosphere in the foundation room is low, it's soft, trying to like a place where people can relax.
Very much.
And while we're waiting for this to play out, would you share with the jury, in February of 2003, in order to be a member of the foundation room, there was a fee required, or a membership fee required, correct?
That's correct.
And that was approximately $2,000 at that time.
That's
And if I understand it right to that, he donated to the charity for the children, is that right?
to our International House of Blues Foundation.
Okay, and that's to benefit privileged children, correct?
We from the inner city music program, about the roots of slave trade and music and how it affected today.
Mr. Berghammer, as I understand it, please correct me if I'm wrong, that when somebody wants to
I hate when it does this. It will be good for hours and hours, and then just like all of a sudden, one right after the other, crash, 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 crash. I don't know why it does that. Yes, I like the beard. I like AJ's beard. And yes, I have a kitty named Shadow. She's very mean. Very mean. Very, very mean. I don't have 19 cats. I have one cat. I have one cat and two dogs. And I have emojis of my animals now for members. My babies. Spike is the dog with the blue background, and Belle is the dog with the yellow background, and of course, Shadow is the cat with the pink. I'm not a cat lady. I used to be before I got married, and now I'm only allowed to have the one because my husband doesn't like cats, but Shadow likes him more than she likes me. And I want a kitten because kittens will love you no matter what. Yeah, that's Judy. Yeah, that's because Judy doesn't let me say anything bad about her.
there's nothing hidden and everybody understands when they join, that is the charity the money is going to.
That is correct.
Very pleased. How much at that time, and recall, how much of that $2,000 at that time went to the children's charity?
I'm pretty sure at that time, it had changed over the years. It was either, I think it went to 25% of the membership.
Okay, so $500 of the $2,000 would have been the donation to the charity.
That would be correct.
And as I understand it from you, and I just learned that this afternoon, Prior to that, there was actually a larger percentage, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
At one time, it was 50%, correct?
That's correct.
Which in that instance would have meant that 1,000 of the 2,000 would have gone for the children.
That's correct.
Okay. And as you said a moment ago, before somebody joins, that's explained to them. So they know that a portion of their membership dues is going to support a charity.
And they would get a tax break.
See? See? Third time in a row. What? I had either 4 or 5 cats at one time. I can't remember if it was 4 or 5. I had a lot. That's a lot. I had a friend that had like 20 something cats. You walked in her house and it was like, it didn't matter if you like cats or not. You were going to have cats on you when you walked in the house because they were everywhere. That's too many cats. I want Are they capybaras the ones that smell like popcorn? I want one of the animals that smell like popcorn. No, not 47, 20 something. 47 would be too many too. But no, 20 something. I guess, Flash. I don't know what's going on. 3 times in a row. This is true. Um, I've never been close enough to one to smell them, but I have heard that they smell like popcorn. I think it's a capybara. I mean, I saw one at what's the name of that place? It's on the other side of the state line, but the Georgia Florida state line, in Valdosta. It's like a zoo and a theme park, but it's a really crappy zoo and theme park. I can't remember the name. Wild Adventures. I saw a capybara there, but you can't get near them. I'm gonna Google that because I don't know if that's the right animal. Oh, look, it popped up on what animal smells and like popcorn popped up. Oh no, it's not a capybara. Bitter wrong. Oh, they're ugly. Never mind, I don't want one. It's a Southeast Asian mammal known as the bear cat. Okay, never mind. Capybaras are cute. This thing's ugly. Bent to wrong. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled program. Hopefully. Come on, the commercial. Wait till the commercial's over. We need to replace our carpet too because the dogs are old and they have suddenly decided they're afraid to go outside. Like they'll tell me they need to go outside. I'll open the door and then they just look. And the way they look is like that. Like, like do I want to go? What's out there? What are you afraid of? It's just a yard. It's your yard. Go. Do you have to go to the bathroom? Go. What are you waiting for? And so I'll go out and I'll stand out in the yard. I'll be like, what? And so now I've started this new thing. Judy knows about this. I've told this story before. I go out there. We have neighbors, but they're Mexican, so they don't speak English. It's the only reason why I do this, because I know they don't know what I'm saying. I go out there and I say, yard monsters, you go away. You leave my doggos alone. You do not mess with them, or you're going to have to deal with me. You're going to deal with a mad mama if you mess with my dog. And then they go outside and they do their business, and then they come back in. I have no idea what they're afraid of. The only problem is that a lot of times they'll go out and make me think they did it, and then they come in and then they go in the house. And I don't understand that. So we really need to pull up our carpet and put down flooring, but we can't afford it right now, which is why I'm streaming all the time, because I need to start saving up money for a new floor. I guess I could start a GoFundMe or something.
You see Mr. Spector there walking off the curb,
Yes, sir.
and you see him walking across, and does it appear to you that Ms. Clarkson is there in front of him?
Yes, sir.
Now, right there, Mr. Spector, and Ms. Clarkson are talking, correct?
Yes, sir.
And it appears that Ms. Clarkson is quite a tall Mr. Spector in that photo, doesn't it?
Yes, she is.
Well, we'll talk about that in a moment. And then we see Mr. Spector and Ms. Clarkson walking off to the right in front of the Ryder truck, correct?
Yes, sir.
For the record, RYDER. Okay, we see Mr. Spector getting in the car there, don't we? In a moment. Mr. Spector gets in on the right, correct? And Ms. Clarkson is escorted by the driver to the left side, and the door is open. She gets in, the door is closed, correct?
That's correct.
And once again, I would ask you, from the moment you saw Mr. Spector enter the screen on the clip to the moment that you observed him to enter the rear portion of the vehicle, you did not see him start with a fall, correct?
I did not.
And you saw him have to step off that curb, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then the vehicle drives away, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Let's, if we could, put back up on the screen. Jim, the photo, that photo we saw earlier with the staircase. Okay. The photo of the shows the outside, please. Cover photo, yes, thank you. We're not sure you're looking at him. There. Again, please help me, sir. That is not the sunset entrance.
That's not the sunset.
That's around the side where the street goes down, correct?
That is what we call the foundation entrance.
Okay. Tell me, what is the street name?
Well, there is no street name, for lack of a better term, because it's private property.
There is
so,
no street name.
Yeah. It's actually loses on Lord and on Olive. So going into the parking lot, it's off Olive Street, so we called it the Olive entrance.
And Olive Road is in a north-south direction.
What we call the
Entrance, the Olive entrance.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to borrow for a step on your words.
John,
Yes.
His voice is really going down. I just haven't heard him hear it.
Okay, if you can write into the microphone, we'll have a lot better luck. All right, you may proceed.
Thank you. Use the microphone just like you use a telephone, okay?
Okay,
There you go. And as I understand it, Olive runs in a north-south direction, correct?
that's correct.
And Sunset east and west.
Yes, sir.
So it's the southeast corner that the House of Blues is on Olive and Sunset.
That's correct.
And Olive, if I'm correct, it is downhill, correct? It's not a level street.
Not at all.
And it's a fairly, it's not steep like Mount Everest, but it's a fairly steep street going down, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
In a southerly direction.
Yes.
Okay. Now, this entrance is the separate special entrance for members of the foundation, correct?
That is correct.
And as Mr. Jackson said, if somebody like me went there, I couldn't get in, right? I'd have to come around the other side on Sunset.
I couldn't get it.
All right, neither one.
He's the judge on that. So I understand the point in the elevator. There's an elevator that takes people up to the foundation because it's 3 flights up, correct?
That's correct.
As I understand it, at some point that elevator, its service terminated during the evening, is that right?
That's correct.
And that's about kind of like around 2 o'clock-ish, a little bit before. Mr. Spector and his guests were to have arrived at this entrance to the House of Blues in the early morning hours at February 3rd, 2003. And the elevator had been turned off for the evening. Okay? And he and his guests wanted to go to the foundation when there's only one way to get up there, short of sprouting a pair of wings, right?
That, yes,
For the public.
correct.
And that's to negotiate the stairs, which we see almost dead center in this image on the screen, correct?
That's correct.
Now, it looks to me like the stairs has a banister, correct?
On both sides.
On both sides. And these are, what, wooden stairs?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if the vehicle stops, let's say, right where the red area is, approximately, and people get out, and it's after 2 o'clock, and the elevator is shut down, I'd like you to take a moment and, for the benefit of the jury, walk us through how Mr. Spector and his guests would have had to go up those stairs to get up to the foundation.
That's assuming that there was not somebody on the inside, because up those, I think there's 4 stairs. You can go straight, or you can make a harsh right. If you make a harsh right, you're up the staircase. If you go straight, within 1 foot is kind of the entrance to the elevator bay, and there's a security guard that stands there.
Let's assume, for the sake of this question, that the elevator bay has been turned off for the evening, and Mr. Spector and his guests desire to go up to the foundation. And let's assume further that an employee of the House of Blues offers to escort them up. So now we have to make a harsh right, as you described it, and go up the stairs.
Yes, sir.
So the first thing we see is that they would have to negotiate is the curb, and then walk across the sidewalk area or entrance area. And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, as I see it. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Walk up those steps and then make a right. And it appears that you can just faintly see what looks like maybe a post for the railing there in the dark area. Do you see that?
Yes, sir. I see it.
And that's where the stair is, right? The stairway.
That is a stairway.
And then up you go, correct?
That's correct.
Do you know, you may not know this, and it's not a trick question. Do you know how many steps there are from the foyer or entrance area once you get up those 4 steps until you get to the first landing?
I could give you an approximation, but I couldn't give you an exact number.
20, something like that?
25,
20.
20, 25.
And then you get to a landing, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then, I'll show you how to use it. My first time. That's the landing, right there?
That's correct.
Okay. And so they come up here, make a harsh right, and go up the first one.
Mhm.
Then the stairway, excuse me, not the landing stair, the pathway then leads from here in that direction, going towards the building.
Yes, sir.
And that's what, 10 steps, 8, 10 steps, something like that?
Probably 6 to 8.
Okay. And then there's another stairway that goes up to, correct?
That's right.
And that's again about 25 steps?
Now, that's probably more like 8 to 10. It's quite short.
Okay. And then there's a landing which we can't see because this wall blocks it, isn't that right?
That's correct.
So there's a landing there approximately, and then you turn and come this way
Correct.
to negotiate the next set of steps.
Yes, sir.
And that's again about 8 or 10 feet.
That's probably a little bit more.
Okay. 12 feet, 15 feet.
Yeah.
All right. And then we get to this set of steps, and we go up this set of steps to this landing here, right?
Yes.
On this stairway here, or this stairway, how many steps would you say there are?
Could you do that one more time?
Sure. Once you hit the landing here, you make a left turn, and then you're here at the base, and you start to go up these steps here. My question is, how many steps approximately from here to here?
It was about 15.
Okay? And then when you finally achieve that, and you're up on this landing here, you make a left and walk again towards the building across the landing. Right?
Correct.
That's another 10, 12 feet. Something like that. Okay, and then you negotiate another 6 steps, correct?
Yes.
And how on that, so when you get up at the top, there's a platform, right, or a landing area,
Yes.
and you hang a right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and there's a door.
That's correct.
And then if you get past the door, that's when you gain the access into the foundation.
You gain access into a hallway, and then there is
And the foundation room is off the hall.
off the left side. Yes.
You've been up and down those stairs many times.
Oh, yes.
Okay. If you walk it at a normal pace, I'm not saying jogging up or running up it or, as they do, sometimes they have these races where people run all the way up these stairs and these huge high rises, but just walking up with somebody, talking with somebody at a casual pace, what would you think? 2, 3, 4 minutes, 5 minutes to get up to the top?
Yeah. Probably 90 seconds to 2 minutes, if you take your time for talking.
90 seconds to about 2 minutes if you take your time and you're not in a hurry.
And
Is that yes?
You know, I've done it so many times, I've done it as short as probably 15, 20 seconds to a minute. And it really depends upon
Okay.
you.
But if, as you said, if you're taking your time and maybe you're speaking with somebody and you're just having a casual evening, 90 seconds to about 2 minutes.
Maybe 90 seconds, yeah.
All right. Tell me this. When the sun goes down, I'm not going to say when it comes up. When the sun goes down, it's dark. How are those stairs lit?
They're lit from, I can tell you if you want to, each landing has a different set of lights.
Okay. And the lights are, it's kind of a light bulb affair, isn't it?
The top one on the tin roof next to the window, there's a light there. And then underneath each landing, I guess for lack of a better term, would be another light fixture there. And each stair has got white tape on them.
Okay, and that's for patrons or whoever, employees, who's ever using the steps to make sure that they can see where they're going so they don't stumble or trip, correct?
Correct.
House of Blues doesn't want a lawsuit of somebody going up the stairs, correct?
Not anymore.
Okay. And you weren't there, but well, I was going to ask you if you knew whether the lighting was working that evening or if it was even on, but you weren't there, so you wouldn't know.
I would be informed if it wasn't, but I was not informed.
Okay, so you presumed that it was working that night?
Correct.
Okay.
One of my favorite supplements is quinol turmeric.
Stop. Thank you. I don't know why. We went for days without commercials. And now we have commercials all the time.
You indicated, sir, that the foundation room is a private club. Is that right?
It is a private membership club.
Private membership club. And you use the term Hollywood's A-list.
That's correct.
All right. For those of us in the room who aren't on the A, B, or C list, would you tell the jury?
For the idea behind it, with the creation of the room was created for an area for the music industry and the film industry to be able to have an area to go and stay a little bit away from the general public so that they wouldn't have so many people coming up to them and tapping them on the shoulder and asking them for autographs. We did open the membership to other people other than the A-list people, but we tried to make sure that the integrity of the room had the right vibe to it, for lack of a better.
Some privacy, correct?
Yeah,
Kind
it
of.
was a call.
Okay. You used a phrase when Mr. Jackson asked you a question. You said, I think if I'm wrong, you correct me. The philosophy was, and on your direct examination, what you said was, their experience would exceed their expectations.
That's correct.
Okay. Once again, I'm going to ask you to turn to the jury and explain to them what the House of Blues meant by that.
When you're dealing with lots of the people that we were dealing with within the foundation room, high net worth people, individuals of fame and stature, and routinely we would ask our staff
I have no idea what is happening, but it's starting to make me mad.
became a kind of a first name basis with lots of the celebrities that would frequent the room. So it would make sure that time not overly friendly.
Okay. And no matter who came in the foundation, whether it was somebody on the A-list, somebody who was famous, somebody who was a celebrity, or if they happened to bring a guest that wasn't in that category of individual, the treatment was the same, correct?
We did our best.
Okay. The Blues, and it was just a person like me or you or anyone else. That person was going to get the same kind of treatment as Mr. Spector that evening, correct?
If they had the proper credentials,
Sure, if they got let into the foundation.
if they had the wristband that would identify that they were part of the membership, or put on the guest list by one of the members.
Okay. And I would imagine that when the House of Blues would instruct its employees who work the foundation room, whether it's security or hostess or server or waiter or whatever category that individual fit into, each and every one of those people were instructed in this philosophy, correct?
That was our goal, yes.
Okay. And you achieved that goal very well, didn't you, when you worked at the House of Blues?
I believe we did.
Okay. It was your impression from working there as the general manager for 7 years. You got good reviews about that from your patrons in the foundation room, correct?
Often.
Yes. Now, as I understand it, you indicated that Lana Clarkson was hired to be a door host. Is that correct?
That's correct.
She would have been hired by Human Resources, correct?
Well, Human Resources would have done their paperwork, but she would have been hired by myself.
Okay. Did you hire her?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You indicated she was hired as a door host. Her responsibilities were a bit of security and a bit of customer relations. Is that right?
That's correct.
In the paperwork, which you had a chance to look at, did it indicate that Lana Clarkson was hired as security only? It did, didn't it?
It said door host / security.
Okay. We talked about how in the one clip, I think it was clip 5, that when you saw Mr. Spector standing in front of Ms. Clarkson and Ms. Clarkson in front of Mr. Spector, there was certainly a height difference. Ms. Clarkson was a tall lady, wasn't she?
Yes, sir.
She was over 6 feet, wasn't she?
Yes, sir.
And she was statuesque. I mean, she wasn't a wispy individual. She actually was quite statuesque, for lack of a better term. Is that a fair statement?
That is correct.
She had a physicality about her, didn't she?
Objection, that's made.
I'll allow it if the witness feels he can answer.
You can answer.
I don't understand physicality.
Did she have a certain presence?
Presence, absolutely.
And I don't mean this necessarily in terms of weight. I'm confining it just to, I'm going from your last question. She was a large person, correct, physically? And not only tall, but she was broad-shouldered.
Statuesque would be the term I would use.
Okay. And Mr. Spector, you wouldn't describe him with those terms, would you? It's okay.
No, I would not.
Okay. Mr. Spector, you would describe as a slight individual, correct?
Yes,
Okay, about 5'4", 5'5", something like that?
I would assume so.
Okay, very thin.
Yes,
So there was no question that when you looked at that clip, that purely from a physical point of view, Ms. Clarkson was a much larger human being, a much larger individual than Mr. Spector, correct?
yes.
May I have the court's indulgence for a moment, please? Jen, do we have the schedule? Could we please ask you for that? Okay. Let's take a moment if we can. Your Honor, may I continue?
Yes.
I'll try and complete it.
Yes, if we can finish with the witness, I'd like to do that.
Okay, I'll try. Let's take a look at this for a moment if we could, all right? Can you go to the first page before that, please? Okay. And this is entitled Foundation Schedule, and you, sir, as general manager, you're very familiar with this document.
Yes, sir.
And if we take a look at it, it's basically the schedule of the individuals that are working, whether they're a manager or a bartender or security or a server or whatever, or a cocktail or whatever, correct?
Yes, sir.
And if we take a look at this, we see the names on the left, and then basically the category that the individual fits, the profile that the individual fits, and then the time, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And this is for the week of Monday, January 27th to Sunday, February 7th. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Jen, may we have the next page, please? Okay, for the record, Your Honor, pagination page 287, I just referred to, we're now on 288. All right. Okay. Taking a look at 288, I want you to take a look at the second category entitled cocktail. You see that?
Yes, sir.
There's a name, a fourth name down. Do you see that name? Can you highlight that, Jen, please? Thank you so much. Can you go on up? Sophia, am I pronouncing right? Holkeen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Who's Sophia Holkeen?
Sophia was one of my foundation room cocktailers.
Okay. And she worked there that night, do you remember?
Yes, sir, she did.
Okay, and you can see that on the schedule?
Yes.
Jake, can you bring that back and show the schedule there for her, please? A little larger, please. That's it? Okay. From from looking at that, which Jen has now highlighted for you, Mr. Berghammer, can you tell us when Sophia started working that day? Was it we'll say February 2nd, that's Sunday?
If it's highlighted in the last set,
The last column,
that says 10 p.m. That
10 p.m. So that would be when she came on.
That would be correct.
And what would be her normal time that she would get off?
The goal would be, between 2 and 3 a.m.
Okay, so she comes to work Saturday at 10 p.m. and she, if the goal is achieved, leaves 2 to 3 a.m. the following morning, correct?
That's correct.
That's Sunday, all right. And do you know whether or not Sophia Holkeen worked that day?
She did.
Okay. And let's go down to security. And under the section entitled security, you see the second name there, Jen, can you blow the second name up, please? Okay. The first name is Joshua Buxbaum, correct?
That's correct.
Now, Jen has highlighted for you in yellow the second name. Who is that individual?
Euphrates.
And what was Euphrates' position in the morning hours of February 3rd, 2003 at the House of Blues?
He was one of our security/store hosts in the foundation hallway,
Okay, so he worked the hallway, not the actual room.
not the actual room.
And that would have been a position where he would have been one of the first individuals once either the stairs or the elevator were accomplished and the people got upstairs. He would have seen them.
It could be. There were 2 positions in the hallway. There was one directly in front of the door that would have you go into the foundation room, and then one all the way at the end of the hallway on the sunset porch side.
Okay. And there's other names up there, and Jim, would you go to the second name of the lot? And now Jen has lit up the name Lana Clarkson. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And she's classified under security, correct?
That's correct.
And Jennifer, if you have the rest of the exhibit back, please. You already told us that on Sunday, it shows 6 p.m. to top. And you told us what that means is that she came in and started at 6 o'clock and top meant door of the foundation room, correct?
That's correct.
And I think you also indicated that it showed that she punched in at 6:02
That's correct.
and she punched out at 2:21.
Yes, sir.
An establishment like the House of Blues serves and sells alcoholic beverage, correct?
That's correct.
Because of that, in February of 2003, there were certain policies in place regarding who you would serve alcohol to. Isn't that true? For example, if a minor, somebody underage came in, it was clear that no server in the House of Blues was going to be permitted to serve a minor alcohol.
That's correct.
If a person came in, for example, to the House of Blues and was extremely disruptive, you had the option whether to serve that individual or not, correct?
That's correct.
And one of the very clear rules was that if the server determined that the patron was inebriated, drunk, they were not to serve them for liability reasons, correct?
In the bottom 2 floors, on the 3rd floor, we asked them to get a manager to handle them.
Okay. And the top floor, the foundation room, same thing. You would not serve somebody who was inebriated or drunk, correct?
That's correct.
Jen, could you please put up the receipt? Mr. Berghammer, we're gonna take a look at the receipt here, okay? And you've already told us about this. I just want to review a couple of areas, and then I want to ask you about one other area. We can tell that these 2 documents, in some respects, mirror image each other, correct?
That is correct.
And we know that they fit together because Sophia has a employee number which appears on both documents. That's correct.
Yes, sir.
Her name appears on both documents, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the check number coincides, correct?
That's correct.
Can we have that all lit up, Jen, please? Thank you. The check number. That's it. And then you'll see the check number here. Please, like the 949 books. Let me ask you a couple of questions. We can take it off now, Jen. Take it off. If we take a look at this, we see from reading it, and you as the general manager, you've seen, what, thousands and thousands of texts like this, and documents like this, correct?
That's correct.
When you worked at hospitals.
And still.
And, Susie, we got the wrong one.
Yes.
Technical difficulty, Your Honor.
All right.
There we go. Okay. That's fine, we can just use that. So if we take a look at this, now, actually, I'm sorry, I need the other one. If we take a look at the right-hand side, you can see that there appears the words and numbers, one Bacard, which I assume stands for Bacardi, 151, which is wrong, correct?
That's correct.
And the charge is $8.50.
That's correct.
Okay, and then underneath that we see one, and I'm assuming it's bar, bottled water, $5, correct?
That's correct.
Now, just from looking at that, you cannot testify or tell us whether either the water or the Bacardi rum was consumed. You can only tell us that somebody placed an order for that, the order was punched in, and it was in all likelihood delivered to the table, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And the total cost for that, whoops, where did we go?
I'm sorry.
Okay, well, that's our number. The total cost was $13.50, correct?
That's correct.
And what's the gratuity?
$450.
And do you have any personal knowledge as to how that $450 was to be paid and to whom?
It would be paid to the waitress, which would be Sophia, and then she would follow our standard tip out procedure, which would be a percentage to the bartender, a percentage to the bar back, and that's it.
Unless the patron, and in this case, Mr. Spector, directed or requested or asked Ms. Holkeen to pay certain portions of that gratuity to certain individuals. And then if that occurred, she would note that, wouldn't she?
I don't know if she would note it, but she would follow up on it.
Sure, she would follow the member's request.
Yes, sir.
So if the gratuity is a total of $450, and Mr. Spector directed her to divide that among, just say, for example, 3 people or 4 people or 5 people, she would take that information and she would follow those instructions, correct?
She would go to the manager, then follow the instructions.
Okay, to make sure that the people he wanted to receive money got their tip.
That's correct.
Okay. Do you know if that was done here? You can't tell from looking at that.
Can't tell.
Okay, so maybe it was and maybe it wasn't. We need to talk to Ms. Holguin, right?
That would be correct.
Okay. Your Honor, I need one moment, please.
All right.
Thank you.
Of course. Mr. Berghammer, thank you for coming. Okay. Thank you for helping me.
Redirect.
After that.
It's up to you.
Thank you for coming.
On behalf of everyone, thank you for coming. You're directed not to discuss your testimony with anyone except the attorneys here, subject to recall your excuse. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, keeping in mind the admonition, we'll resume tomorrow at 9:30 in the morning. We're in recess. Thank you.
Your Honor, we have a couple witnesses to be ordered out.
All right, that's fine.
Okay, they just released him, but this is part 2 of his testimony. I'm confused. I say that too much, you guys. Didn't they just tell him he could go? Stop buffering. He didn't say what the medicine was for. He just said that he was on a medicine.
Larry and Paul Fiddler, Judge presiding.
All right, the defendant is present with his counsel. The district attorneys are present. The jurors and the alternates are present. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, and I want to apologize for the delay this morning. I've been meeting in chambers with counsel. We've been going over some witness scheduling problems and order of witnesses that needed to be resolved before we proceeded today. I'm sorry it took so long, but these things will happen. Do you wish to recall a witness?
With the court's permission, Your Honor, we would ask Eric Berghammer to rejoin us, please.
All right. All right. Sir, you remain under oath. Have a seat, please. Just state your name again for the record.
My name is Eric Berghammer.
Yes.
No.
Okay. All right. You may proceed.
Thank you. I just have a couple of quick questions for you. Thank you for joining us again this morning, Mr. Berghammer. Based on Mr. Rosen's cross-examination, yesterday he asked you if there were certain internal policies adopted by the House of Blues concerning serving individuals who may be intoxicated or who are thought to be intoxicated either slightly or more than slightly. And you indicated to Mr. Rosen that there were, in fact, policies that particular persons who were believed to be intoxicated were not to be served. And you indicated, I think, in your answer to Mr. Rosen's question that that was the case for the first and second floor. What's on the third floor?
The third floor was our foundation room.
Okay, my question to you is, are there any different rules that applied, or back in 2003, were there any different rules that applied for members of the foundation room?
Yes, sir.
Could you explain that for the jury, please?
We routinely had kind of our standard protocol where when people were either intoxicated and or looking as if they had had a few too many drinks, that our normal member would be handled by a manager, but our celebrity A-level member would be kicked up a notch to myself, and I would make a telephone call to our senior vice president of the music side of the business, our talent buyer, who then would give me instruction on how we would handle it.
Is there a reason why celebrity members of the foundation room were treated a little bit differently than an average member or an average patron of the House of Blues?
Well, it is LA, and I think that from that perspective, there were kind of two levels of celebrities. There would be the A-level movie, TV industry type of celebrity, and then there'd also be the music industry celebrity who we had, for lack of a better term, a little bit more of a softer hand with because of punitive type of things that would happen if we didn't handle them correct. Because they handled the bands, they handled kind of the touring routes and things, so it would require us to handle it more gingerly.
When you say punitive type of retribution, what do you mean by that?
Well, on occasion, we have either denied access to some of the music industry people for not being in proper dress code, and then
Because music producers and agents and those kind of people will not book the bands for House of Blues if they're pissed at House of Blues for not serving them any more liquor. That's why. Oh my God.
and they wouldn't sell us bands anymore.
And what was the result of that?
Significant loss of revenue to the venue and to the company.
Plainly speaking, if a server saw an A-list, well, let me ask you this first. Was Philip Spector considered one of the celebrity members or A-list members?
Oh, absolutely.
If a server saw a celebrity member or an A-list member either come into the bar inebriated or slightly intoxicated or otherwise, would that server be allowed to simply cut the person off?
No, sir. We would not allow that.
Why?
We would ask them to bring it up a notch to their manager and ultimately to myself because of the sensitivity of the level of the individual. There was a bigger play, I guess, for lack of a better term.
In your experience, notwithstanding the internal policy that dictated what happened with normal patrons, in your experience as a general manager at the House of Blues, were there times, Mr. Berghammer, when an A-list celebrity might be inebriated, might be intoxicated, yet the House of Blues, they wanted to purchase more alcohol, and the House of Blues accommodated them?
Well, the answer to that question would be yes.
Was that uncommon for A-list or celebrity members?
Well, it was not uncommon, but we weighed in the factor of who was with them and how they would be transportation and kind of the entourage, I guess, for lack of a better term.
So if someone had a driver, for instance, that might be weighed in?
It would be, yes.
All right. In other words, I don't want to put too fine a point on this, but I guess my question is the following. Were A-list or celebrity members treated a little bit differently than the average Joe public?
Objection has been asked.
Overruled, the answer will stand.
Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you. Recross?
Yes, Manager Stevens.
Yes.
Good morning, Mr. Berghammer.
Good morning, sir.
I would say welcome back, but I assume you'd rather be somewhere else.
That would be correct.
As I understand it, you spoke with the prosecution last night after court, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, and they talked to you about this subject matter, is that right?
Yes, sir.
You and I didn't speak last night other than I shook your hand and said it was a pleasure to meet you, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Now, as I understand it, and I want to go back a moment, the foundation room, which is upstairs on the third floor, is strictly a very private club area for celebrities, isn't that correct?
Not strictly. I mean, it is open to a vetting process for which anyone, yourself included, could apply for a membership.
But if I don't have the ticket, I'm not getting in, right?
Unless you are on the guest list from one of the members and or the band.
Okay, so if I'm not, I can tell you I'll never play an instrument in my life. I'm terrible in music, but if I'm not a member of the band, if I'm not a guest of one of the members, and I'm not a member, I'm not going to be given access to the foundation room and or the Buddha room. Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
All right. And as I understand your testimony, you have indicated here today that you had a little bit different hand in terms of the celebrities when they were in fact in the foundation room and whether or not they were inebriated or not. Isn't that correct?
That would be correct, yes.
And I think you indicated you handled it a little bit differently, had a little bit different policy, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, let's just talk about the policy in the foundation room for a moment, if we may. You indicated that you handled it more gingerly with a softer hand. Is that your testimony?
That would be correct.
Right. And of course, keeping in mind that the reason for that was if in fact things didn't go well and you had patrons in the foundation room who were unhappy or dissatisfied, that could result in a significant loss of revenue to the venue and the company. That's what you said, right?
That would be correct, yes.
Let me ask you this. If a patron, we'll strike that, if a member in the foundation room were to show signs of inebriation, to show signs of drunkenness, and the server were to pick that up, as I indicated, it was not his or her decision whether or not to serve that patron, should that patron order another beverage. That decision then gets passed on, or as you said, I think, kicked up a notch to you, correct?
That would be correct, yes.
All right. And then you may make the decision, or you may even decide to kick it up to, I think you said, to somebody above you who was the senior vice president. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, of course, that evening you were not on premises, correct?
That is correct.
So obviously you weren't on premises. You didn't receive any phone call.
Can you imagine getting that call? Phil Spector's drunk again and he wants another whatever, he wants another daiquiri. Can I serve him? Can you imagine getting that call? I imagine, though, that he didn't call the vice president every time. Do you really think he called the vice president every time? He probably didn't. He probably was just like, yeah, go ahead and give him whatever he wants. He's a $500 tip for, what was that one bill? Like $16 and a $450 tip. Of course he's going to give him whatever he wants to drink. Come on.
Calls from Sophia Holkeen that night, did you?
I did not.
Okay, Sophia Holkeen, you've already told us, was one of the waitresses or the servers that evening or that early morning hours of February 3rd of 03, correct?
Correct.
All right. You're a general manager. You were a general manager there for a long time. You've been in this business a long time. You're a veteran, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. A liquor license has to be obtained through the city, correct?
Through the ABC, yes.
Through the ABC. It's a very valuable license, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Costs a lot of money, doesn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And businesses in general, and especially businesses like the House of Blues, they will seek to protect that license because that license is literally worth millions and millions of dollars on any given calendar year. Isn't that correct?
That would be correct.
And the reason for that is because without that license, you cannot sell liquor, correct?
Correct.
I'm assuming that the House of Blues receives a large portion of their revenues in any given calendar year from the sale of alcoholic beverage, correct?
Yes, sir.
To borrow a industry phrase, the markup, and I'm assuming you know what I mean by that, but the markup on alcohol is extremely profitable, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Therefore, the House of Blues, especially when you, sir, were the general manager in February of 03, was very careful about protecting that liquor license, correct?
That would be correct.
And you never know whether or not you've got somebody from the alcoholic beverage control on your premises that evening seeing what's going on, do you?
On the first 2 floors, correct.
Okay. And what about on the 3rd floor?
They would not be allowed in.
Okay. What if somebody from the alcohol and beverage control showed up with a badge and said, we're here to do a check. We're here to do a formal check. You could not refuse that, could you?
We would allow them in.
Yes, because that's part of the licensing process. In other words, before you get a license, they explain to you that they have a right to come in and check at any time of the day or night they want to, correct?
Absolutely.
And usually they don't phone you ahead, do they?
They do not.
Okay, they just show up, right?
And present us with documentation that's who they are.
Right, and if you're satisfied that they are the real deal, then you let them in and let them do what they want to do, correct?
Absolutely.
Because otherwise you may be in jeopardy of losing this license, which, as you say, is a significant revenue getter for the company and the venue, correct?
Yes, sir.
Therefore, you're very protective of that license. Isn't that true, Mr. Berghammer?
The company was, yes.
As general manager in February of 2003, you were familiar with the California Business and Professionals Code, Section 25602, weren't you?
I don't know it particularly. If you
Okay,
tell me
well,
what it is.
let's take a look at it and say, Jen, may I have your help, please? Can you blow it up for us, please? This is a copy right out of the Business and Professions Code. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
Could you read it, please, out loud?
Every person who sells, furnishes, gives, or causes to be sold, furnished, or give away any alcohol beverage to any habitual or commonly drunkard or to any obviously intoxicated person is guilty of a misdemeanor.
Okay, so there's basically, according to 25602, 3 different categories. Is that correct? The first category is anybody who is a habitual drunkard, correct?
Yes, sir.
Second category is anybody who is a common drunkard, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the third category is anyone who is obviously an intoxicated person, correct?
Yes, sir.
If you are cited, and when I say you, not you personally, of course, but if the company or the particular venue on Sunset Boulevard, the House of Blues, gets cited by the Alcohol Beverage Control for a violation of 25602 Business and Professions Code, this is not a good thing, is it?
That would be correct. Yes.
And it could endanger the liquor license obtained from ABC, correct?
That is correct.
Amount of revenue over a 12-month calendar year, isn't that true?
Yes, sir.
Whose policy in February of 2003 to not violate the law, correct?
That would be the policy.
And it would further be the policy at that time to make sure that the servers, the waiters, the waitresses, and anybody else involved, bartenders, in the service of alcoholic beverage was familiar and aware of 25602 of the Business and Profession Codes, correct?
Correct.
And you as the general manager made sure, because basically the buck stopped with you, didn't it, if something went wrong? You made sure that these people were aware of that, correct?
It actually fell one level above me, but I was one of the individuals that was responsible, yes.
Court's indulgence for a moment, please. Mr. Berghammer, just one final question. You were totally unaware of the circumstances of Mr. Spector's presence on premises in the early morning hours of that Sunday in February, correct?
Could you say that one more time?
Sure, of course. At that time, on February 3rd, 2003, you were not familiar with the circumstances of Mr. Spector's presence on premises. You only learned about anything that went on after the fact. Isn't that correct?
Correct, the next morning.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Redirect.
Thank you. The House of Blues on Sunset is the signature company for, the signature location for the company, is it not?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Would you define the House of Blues as a rock and roll venue?
Oh, yes.
Was it important for this rock and roll venue, this signature or House of Blues, to maintain that odorless, colorless, intangible called vibe?
Your Honor, I'm going to object. Question's compounded and it's vague.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes, sir. It was very important.
Were the servers told or instructed to help maintain that vibe?
Yes, sir.
Where was it most important in the Sunset House of Blues to maintain that rock and roll, that high profile vibe?
On the third floor.
If your servers consistently and constantly were cutting off these high profile celebrity patrons because they thought their BAC might be above a .08, do you think it would have had any impact on that rock and roll vibe?
Objection calls for speculation, no foundation.
Overruled. I believe he does have a foundation to answer that. No pun intended. You may answer.
Could you ask it again? I'm sorry.
Probably not.
Well done, though, however.
Yeah, nicely done, Roger. Nicely done. If servers constantly or consistently were cutting off patrons whom they believed had above a .08 blood alcohol content, might it have had some stilting effect on that rock and roll vibe that you described as being so important?
Yes, sir. It would have.
Would be devastating to the foundation room portion of the company, correct?
Objection,
It would definitely be a very difficult room to sustain was.
As a matter of fact, these high profiles paid for the option to be a member of the foundation room so that they could, in the words of Burger King, have it their way, correct?
objection. It's argumentative rule.
I think that calls for some speculation. The objection is sustained.
I don't know.
Thank you. Recross.
Proof.
Mr. Berghammer, you are not suggesting here this morning, are you, that the House of Blues embraces a policy of breaking the law for celebrities on the third floor of the Sunset venue inside the foundation room or the Buddha room, are you?
The answer to that question is that I'm not suggesting it. I am just merely stating that the way we handled celebrities was different than the general public.
You're not saying, are you, that if in fact a server or you as the general manager or the senior vice president determines that somebody in fact, Jen, can I have that back up, please? Is either, let me see if I can remember it, either a habitual drunkard, a common drunkard, or obviously inebriated. You're not telling us, are you, that you will still go ahead and serve that individual, even if that individual is a celebrity? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that that would be kicked up to a higher level and they would make the decision.
Presumably, the decision would always be not to violate 25602 of the Business and Professions Code. Isn't that true? You wouldn't knowingly violate the law of California, would you, as an employee at the House of Blues?
I would allow my bosses to make that decision.
Your bosses maintain a higher position with the company, correct?
Yes, sir.
You don't have any particular knowledge, do you, that one of your bosses at that time, whoever your boss or bosses were in February of '03, would permit this to go on, a direct violation of California law? Can you answer that, please?
Objection. That seems to call for speculation.
If he can answer it, do you think you can answer that question? Do you have the knowledge?
I don't have the knowledge.
All right, the objection is sustained.
You are not suggesting, are you, sir, that the vice president who you report to, knowingly in February of 2003, told you to turn a cheek the other way and go ahead and break the law?
In February,
Yes, of 2003.
I can't particularly tell you that date, but I can tell you that we handled celebrities different.
Okay, thank you very much.
Nothing further.
All right, subject to recall your excuse. Thank you very much.
Turn a cheek the other way. Dude, that's not the right words. It's look the other way. It's look the other way when you're ignoring something. Turn the other cheek is forgiving somebody. Don't mix up your idioms, dude. I don't like this lawyer.
For being here and for coming back. Your next witness, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Sophia Hogan.
Please spell your name for the record.
Sophia Hogin, SOPHIAHOLGUIN.
Thank you. If you sit back and pull the microphone right under your chin, you won't have to lean forward. You'll be more comfortable and we'll be able to hear you. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning.
Good morning.
You were here yesterday for a while, weren't you?
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming back. I appreciate it. I'd like to invite your attention to February 2nd and then into the early morning hours of February 3rd of 2003. Where were you working at the time?
At the House of Blues.
What was your job?
I was a cocktail waitress.
How long did you work there? That was my next question. And what was the foundation room? Where was it?
It was on the 3rd floor.
How long did you work there?
About 2.5 months.
Do you work there any longer?
No, I don't.
Okay. How long after the date we're talking about did you work there?
I believe about a couple weeks, maybe 2 weeks or less than that.
Can I ask you to, if you put the mic back toward, it comes all the way back, right underneath your chin. There you go. Thank you.
Was it a foundation room? When you worked there as a cocktail waitress, was it a little special? Was it different?
It was more for the elite, so it's a little different than the rest of the House of Blues.
It took something special to get there?
Yes, yes.
Now, on the date that we're talking about, Sunday evening into Monday morning, did you know a person?
I did.
Come back to 14, please. Thank you, Susan. I'll put People's 14 up. Do you know that person?
Yes.
Was she working there in the foundation room with you that evening?
Yes, she was.
What was her job, if you know?
She was a hostess/security.
What did that mean?
She greeted people when they came into the foundation room, or she guarded the door.
To make sure what?
What do you mean? I don't understand.
Well, when she guarded the door, did she make sure that only the right people, the people with the right ID or tags
Right,
got in?
security had to make sure that they were allowed to come in.
Because not everyone was allowed into the foundation room.
No, you had to be a member.
If I showed up and came to the front door that night, Lana Clarkson would have turned me away probably.
Correct.
Okay. On that evening, did you see Phil Spector?
Yes, I did.
About what time, do you know?
It was about 1:45, around there.
1:45 in the morning, so that would have been February 3rd.
Correct.
Was he with someone?
Yes, he was.
Could you briefly describe that person?
She was a white female. She had short blonde hair. I don't know her name.
Do you remember anything about how she was dressed?
Not particular. No, I don't.
Dressed up or dressed down or
Objection, ask and answers, suggested.
Overruled. You may answer if that assists you in any way. If it doesn't, just let us know.
I don't recall what she was wearing.
when you first saw Phil Spector and this woman that you've just described, where were they?
They were just approaching the foundation room.
Where Lana Clarkson was working.
Yes.
Had you seen Phil Spector before?
Yes,
in the
I have.
foundation room? Just once or more than once?
Once.
What happened is, if you recall, what happened when Phil Spector and this woman came up to the foundation room to where Lana Clarkson was?
I asked Lana to sit them in my section because I had waited on him before, and I knew that he was a good tipper, so I asked her to make sure that she put him there.
And that'd be important to you, that's
Yes, that's the reason I'm there, to make some money.
sure. Okay, and what happened after that?
I recall that she didn't know who he was.
What did you see or hear that makes you say that Lana Clarkson didn't know who Phil Spector was when he first came up to the foundation room?
Because she called him Miss Spector.
You heard that.
Yes.
What happened then? Did Phil Spector respond to it when Lana Clarkson said Miss Spector?
He said Mr. Spector.
He told Lana Clarkson his name
Correct.
as if she should know it.
Right.
What happened then?
I believe he went to the restroom, and that's at that point, that's when I asked her to sit in my section. And I told her, that he was a producer. And so she was sitting him in my section.
When you went up to her and told her
Yes,
that he was a music producer,
correct.
did you say anything about his wealth?
Yes, I told her that he was a multimillionaire.
And you wanted him, Phil Spector, in your section
Correct.
so you could wait on him.
So I can make some money, yes.
At that point, when you walked up to Lana Clarkson and said those words to her, did she at that point know who he was?
She didn't know who he was until I told her.
Did you know a man by the name of Euphrates?
Yes,
Was he working there in the foundation room that evening?
yes, he was.
What was his job?
He was bartending. No, actually, he was both bartending and security.
Security with respect to the foundation room?
Correct. He was overseeing the whole security that night.
And did you see him talk with Lana Clarkson at about that time?
Yes, he did.
Do you know what he said?
He told her to let him in because she had to get clearance. She didn't know who he was.
So at this time when you saw Phil Spector walk up to the foundation room and to where Lana Clarkson was, she called him Miss, correct?
Yes,
And then at some point you told Lana Clarkson who Phil Spector was, the multimillionaire record producer. Is that right?
correct.
And Euphrates also had a conversation with her about that.
Right.
Do you know whether or not any of the employees in the foundation room wore radios at the time?
The security did.
You did.
Correct.
And the security wore radios. Did they have little earphones?
Yes.
So they could communicate like that too.
Yes.
Now, at some point after you talked to Lana Clarkson and told her who Phil Spector was, I think you said he'd gone to the bathroom.
Correct.
Did he return at some point?
Yes.
What happened?
Then they were seated in my section.
When you say they, Phil Spector and the woman he entered with,
Correct.
did you go up and ask if they needed anything?
Yes, I greeted them. I asked them if they would like something to drink.
And what was said?
They ordered a drink.
Who did?
Phil and the woman.
What did the defendant Phil Spector order?
He ordered a Bacardi 151.
Bacardi 151?
Correct.
Did he specify how he wanted it, or did you ask him?
Yes, up.
What does that mean?
It means just straight, no ice, no mixer.
Now, Bacardi 151, is that a special type of rum to your knowledge?
It's a premium rum.
How about the alcohol content?
So it has a high level of alcohol.
Now, so Phil Spector ordered the Bacardi 151. How about the woman he was with?
She ordered a bottle of water.
Did Phil Spector say anything when she said, I'd like some water?
He said, just order a drink.
And what happened then?
And she said she just wanted water.
And then next?
Then he said, just order a fucking drink.
And did she respond to that?
No, at that point, then I said, I'll go get your Bacardi 151 and a bottle of water.
Now, did that conversation you just told us about ordering the water and Phil Spector's response to that, did that make you feel uncomfortable in some way?
It was a little odd.
Why?
Because I could clearly see that she didn't want a drink and he wanted her to have a drink.
From everything you saw there, did it appear that she was relaxed and calm and happy, or agitated and upset?
She seemed a little out of place.
And why do you say that? What about what she said or did make you feel that she was out of place?
I just knew, I could see it in her eyes that she did not want to drink. And she just looked very uncomfortable.
Did it appear that she wanted just to get some water and stay and be happy, or wanted to get out of there?
And it seemed as if she didn't want to be there.
The objection is sustained. The answer is stricken. The jury is admonished.
Did she indicate to you in either what she said or what she did that she did not want to be there?
No.
So after you took the order for the Bacardi 151 and the water, you went off to get that?
Correct.
At some point, did you return with the drink and the water
Yes, I did.
to where Phil Spector was?
Yes.
And where exactly in the foundation was it?
It was in the Buddha room.
And what is that?
In the foundation room, there are separate little rooms for guests, depending on how many people or who you are, where you'd like to go. It's kind of isolated. It has a Buddha in the room.
So you returned to where Phil Spector had ordered his drink, his Bacardi 151, with the drink.
Correct.
And did you find him?
The woman was not there.
But Phil Spector was.
Yes.
Do you know what happened to the woman?
Yes. I asked him, and he stated that his driver took her home.
You asked Phil Spector what happened to the woman.
Yes.
And the driver taken the girl home, that's what Spector told you.
Correct.
Did you give him his drink?
Yes, I did.
Did you give him the water?
I set the water there. Yes, I did.
And did he have any response to your offering him the water that the woman he'd been with had ordered? Did he
Can you
say
repeat
anything? Did he say anything when you gave him the water?
Oh, he asked if I'd like a drink.
And what was your response to that?
No, thank you. I can't drink. I'm working.
Did he ask if you wanted to do something later?
He asked if I wanted to go home with him.
Now, did that surprise you?
Objection.
Overruled.
You can answer.
No, it didn't surprise me.
Does that happen sometimes?
It's a common question to ask.
And what was your response to Phil Spector's invitation that you accompanied him to his home later on?
I believe I said something to the fact that I thank you, but I can't go either. I had to work the next morning or I had a meeting.
Did you make that up?
Yes, I did.
You just didn't want to go home with him?
No, I don't do that. Yeah, I don't.
All right. Now, during this conversation, either in ordering the drink, the Bacardi 151, or when you delivered it to him, did you come to an opinion about his state of sobriety? Did you think he was under the influence at all?
He appeared a little agitated.
Did you think he was under the influence of either alcohol or drugs in some way?
Yes.
I'm objecting to the question. I'm going to ask the question.
You may approach. You may proceed.
Thank you. Going back to my last question, based on your job and what you do, did you think that Phil Spector was under the influence of anything that evening?
Yes.
Well, if we've had a big pause, I'll allow the district attorney to start off. You may proceed.
And your answer was yes?
Yes.
Why did you think that?
Just his demeanor.
What about his demeanor?
He was very, very agitated and very fast speaking, a little slurish.
Is he loud at times?
Yeah,
Did he use swear words, cuss words at times?
Overrule. The question was, did he, not without suggesting anything one way or the other. He may
Yes.
answer.
yes,
Now, you told us that he asked you to have a drink and then asked you if you wanted to return home with him, which you turned down.
correct.
Did he at some point finish party 151 that you delivered?
Yeah.
Did he ask you for another drink?
Yes,
And when was that?
that was a little bit after 2:00.
And did you serve him another drink?
No, I did not,
Why not?
because I had to ask management if it was allowed. After a certain time, you can't serve alcohol.
So you did not make that decision yourself about giving him a second drink. You referred that to a manager.
Correct.
Do you remember the manager's name?
Kim,
Okay. And did Kim give you an answer?
yes, he said no.
Now, you said that you wanted Phil Spector to sit in your area. Is that right?
Correct.
For the tip. Is that correct?
Yes,
You knew he was generous.
yes,
Did you also serve him a drink because of that?
yes,
You wanted to tip?
yes.
Now, I'd like to go back just a little bit. When you first took the drink order, or perhaps when you returned with the drink, was Lana Clarkson in the area there in the Buddha room where Phil Spector was sitting and where you were serving him?
She had been in the room, yes.
And what was she doing?
She was walking back and forth, in and out. She was fluffing some of the pillows at times.
Is that normally the security worker's job?
No, but Lana, she would always go over and beyond.
What did it appear to you that she was doing? Being friendly?
Yes, she was friendly. Yes.
Did Phil Spector respond or comment on Lana Clarkson's activities there in the Buddha room?
He did.
What did he say?
He said she won't stay still. She's like fucking Charlie Chaplin.
Now, at some point after Phil Spector's drink, he drank it, and then he ordered another, but you couldn't serve him. Did you give him a tab? Did you give him a check?
Yes,
Can we have that? That's People's 13, please. We have it up there on the board. I'd like you to look at it. Do you recognize that?
yes, I do.
It says House of Blues, West Hollywood at the top, correct?
Yes,
And does it have your name on it?
yes, it does.
Sophia.
Yes,
And it has a number next to it?
yes.
Is that your employee number?
I don't recall if that's it.
Okay. Might be though.
It could be. It usually is on the check.
And below that, there's the date February 3rd of '03, right?
Yes,
And that's the day that you served Phil Spector and this woman that left, correct?
correct.
And then 1:59 a.m. Is that when you billed this through the computer?
That's when I first opened the check.
So it was just before you closed?
Yes,
Okay, because 2 o'clock's supposedly the cutoff time.
1:45.
Oh, okay, but somehow we still ordered your drink, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That,
And then the bill reflects the Bacardi 151,
correct.
the bottle of water,
Yes,
and for a grand total of $13.50.
yes,
And you were right, Phil Spector's a generous tipper.
yes, he was.
Okay, the tip was,
$450 total.
and was that split among a couple people or not?
Yes, it was.
Is there a policy there at the House of Blues about that?
No, I think it's an individual person, it was at the end of the day, I pay taxes on it. So, he asked me to divide it up and
Okay.
I did.
So Phil Spector indicated the $450 tip, but asked you to divide it up in some manner?
Correct.
And do you recall how that was?
It was for myself, security, and hostess.
And then we see with the grand total there, $463.50 on a diner's card for P. Spector. Is that right?
Yes,
And that's how the Bacardi and the water were paid for.
yes.
Is that right? At some point after closing, and when is usually closing there in the foundation room? 2:15?
When you say closing, what do you mean?
Well, what I was really going to ask you about is did there come a time when you were able to hear what was going on in the radio?
Yes, security at that point, we're cleaning up, so security will take off their earpieces and just have the radios on.
And that's when the foundation room is closing up.
Correct.
And so at some point, were you able to hear what was going on in the radio traffic among the security people?
Yes.
Did you hear something about Lana, or did you see Lana?
I don't recall.
Was there some request by Phil Spector for Lana to sit down and have a drink with him?
Yes.
And what did you hear about that?
I heard the answer was no.
Do what?
If she could have a sit down and have a drink.
But the man saying
Yes.
no. But did allow her to do what? Sit down with him?
Yes.
And did you see that?
No.
Okay. When's the last time that you saw Lana Clarkson that evening?
I saw her walking out to the elevator with Phil Spector.
About what time was that?
Around maybe 2:15, 2:20.
And where were you when you saw Lana Clarkson with Phil Spector leaving the foundation?
I was in the foundation room
And they were going where?
to the elevator.
Are there a couple ways to get in and out of the foundation room?
There are.
Is that right?
Yes.
And which way would they go?
Directly towards the elevator.
That takes them down to the lower level?
Yes, to the valet parking.
Could I have a moment, please, Your Honor?
You may.
Is that the last time that you ever saw Lana Clarkson
Yes.
leaving with Phil Spector?
Yes.
Could I have another moment?
You may.
Thank you. Nothing further at this time.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Good morning.
Morning.
What is your preference in terms of me addressing you? Miss, Mrs., or Ms.?
Miss.
Miss? Okay. Like Mr. Dixon before me, Miss Dixon, I'm sorry, Miss Holkeen, I got you married off there real quick. I'm not sure that Pat's wife would
Yeah.
appreciate it. I'm going to ask you a few questions, okay?
Okay.
All right. Now, as I understand it, it became clear to you that from the very beginning that Lana Clarkson did not know who Phil Spector was, correct?
Correct.
But she soon learned who he was, isn't that
Yes.
right? She learned who he was.
Okay, so maybe this is the night in question. Because if this was the last time that she saw Lana, well, maybe not. I mean, maybe she didn't work again to see her. I don't know. I'm so confused. I could have sworn in opening statements. I know it's opening statements is not evidence though. I guess I misunderstood. I thought he went to dinner with Rami at House of Blues. And that was when he met Lana, asked her to have a drink with him, and she said, "No, I can't. We're not allowed." But she asked the manager, and the manager said no. And that was the night that the manager told her, treat him as if he was Dan Aykroyd. And then that was the first night that he met Lana. And then, because she couldn't have a drink with him then, she actually went home with him to have a drink. That's what I thought. But now we're hearing no, he was with Rami earlier in the night. Then he was with Kathy, but then he sent Kathy home. So, what date is this? Is this the night? Help me out, guys, because I'm confused. Is this the third that they're talking about?
From you, correct?
Yes.
And also, I think you indicated that she had a conversation with Euphrates, right?
Yes.
Now, Euphrates, that's the gentleman that I met yesterday evening and this morning out in the hallway, correct?
Yesterday, yes.
Okay. And what is Euphrates' full name? Do you know?
Don't know
Okay.
the last name. I don't know how to pronounce it.
All right. He was working there that morning along with you, correct?
Yes.
What was Euphrates' position that morning?
He was the head security. He was training Lana.
All right. As I understand it, Lana was working, as you said, as hostess and security, correct? That morning?
Yes.
Lana is a big girl, correct?
She's a tall woman. Yes.
She's over 6 feet, isn't she?
Yes.
Okay. And she's also a statuesque woman. I don't mean that in a derogatory way, just she's big boned and has a good set of broad shoulders on her. She's a big woman, correct?
She's beautiful, yes.
And beautiful, absolutely. We just saw her. Okay. When you observed her along with Mr. Spector, it was clear that there was a great disproportion in terms of size, right?
Yes.
She towered over him. That's a fair statement, isn't it?
Yes.
And she was also bigger than him physically, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Spector is a small man. Isn't that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay. Now, there came a time, as I understand it, that you told Lana, and this is when Mr. Spector went to the restroom, that Mr. Spector was in the industry, correct? In the music industry.
Yes, he was a producer.
You told her that he was a music producer, correct?
Yes.
And you also told her that not only was he a music producer, but that he was a multimillionaire, correct?
Yes.
And when Lana heard that, she answered to you kind of like, okay, didn't she?
Well, I wanted her to sit him down, so I explained clearly why I wanted him.
Sure, you wanted to be hopefully the recipient of a generous tip.
Yeah, that's why I'm there, to make
Okay.
money. Yeah.
And she said, okay, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I think you indicated that Ms. Clarkson also had conversation with Euphrates, correct?
Yes.
And Euphrates also told Ms. Clarkson about who Mr. Spector was. Isn't that
Yes.
true?
Yes.
Do you remember a statement to the effect that Mr. Spector was to be treated like Dan Aykroyd, like gold? You remember
Yeah.
that?
Yes.
And that's what Euphrates told Ms. Clarkson, correct?
Anybody who is a member of that status, yes, has to
Okay.
be treated a certain way.
But my question's a little bit more specific, okay? My question is, that's what Mr. Laundress or Euphrates told Lana Clarkson that morning, correct?
Yes.
And it was clear that that statement was meant to impart how important Mr. Spector was and how he was to be taken care of, correct?
Yes.
It was after that time that I think you said that you observed Miss Clarkson to be paying a lot of attention to Mr. Spector, correct?
Not necessarily to him, but she was visible in the room.
Well, it was, when you say it was she was visible in the room, you found it strange that she was in the room in that way, didn't you?
It was a little odd.
Okay. It was a little odd because it was kind of like over the top for her, wasn't it?
Yes and no.
All right. Let me ask you this. It was clear to you that she was trying to get Mr. Spector's attention, right?
That's calling for speculation.
Sustained.
Well, was it your impression by the way she conducted herself that it seemed to you that she was trying to get his attention?
Same objection.
Same ruling.
Ms. Clarkson sat Mr. Spector and his guests that morning, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And she began at some point fluffing up his pillows, bumping around and making noise in the area where he was at, correct?
Yes.
And you responded to that by saying, who does she think she's kidding? Get out of here. You remember making those statements?
No, I don't.
Okay. Do you recall being interviewed by a couple of detectives on February 7th, 2003 from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department?
Yes.
Do you remember they came and spoke with you and asked you a lot of questions and you provided answers?
Yes.
And you recall before they started their discussion with you, they told you and suggested to you that you needed to be completely truthful with them?
Yes.
And you were, correct?
Yes.
And do you remember speaking to them and telling them that when you observed Lana Clarkson to be picking up the pillows and bumping around and making noise, you made the statement to them that you said, get out of here. Who does she think she's kidding? She didn't need to get that comfortable. Do you remember making statements along those lines?
No, I don't.
I have a copy of a transcript of that interview that you had with her? It was a tape with them. It was a taped interview. Do you recall?
No,
Okay. Well, it was a taped. You didn't know you were being taped?
I don't recall.
Okay. Well, I have a transcript of that, and you were being taped. If I got that out and showed you those questions and those answers, might it refresh your memory?
It possibly could.
Okay. With the court's permission, may I approach?
Yes. We have
Okay. Yes, of course, of course.
You may.
Ms. Holkeen, we have a certain processes we have to go through here in court. It's a little different than outside. I'm going to show you a portion of this transcript, okay? You are to read it to yourself, not out loud. And then after you read it, you can let me know, and then I'm going to ask you some questions, okay? And let me move my little yellow Post-it so you can read it, okay? And I want you to start on page 55 and read from line 1 to line 12, okay? Just that. Okay, thank you. You've read that now?
Yes.
Okay. Now, does that refresh your memory?
Yes.
Okay. And your response to that was, get out of here, who does she think she's kidding? What did you mean by that?
Well, I'm there to make money, so that's, I'm there to sit there and talk to him and see, just communicate with him to see that just, the more you communicate with him, the bigger tip you can receive. So,
Well, when you made the statement, get out of there, who does she think she's kidding? Weren't the statements directed at what Lana Clarkson was doing around Phil Spector? They were, weren't they?
I don't think I made the comment, who does she think she's kidding? I think that was the detective that made that comment.
Okay. You agreed with that comment, didn't you?
That I didn't make it. Yes, I agree with that.
Okay. Did you also, when you just read it a moment ago, did that refresh your memory that that's what your thinking process was at that time?
No, I mean, I wouldn't think get out of here, or who are you kidding? I wouldn't think that. That's not that's not who I am to think like that.
Okay. Do you remember indicating that you thought that Lana Clarkson was just getting too over anxious to get Mr. Spector's attention?
Can you repeat that?
Sure. Do you remember indicating that you felt that Lana Clarkson was overreacting, is a better word, overreacting to get Mr. Spector's attention?
No, I don't think overreacting. I just thought, she had came in there a couple of times, and that's not usually normal.
Okay. Not usually normal?
Yes.
All right. You hadn't seen her behave that way previously, correct?
No, but I didn't work with her every night either.
I understand, but you had worked with her somewhat before.
Yes.
Okay. It was clear to you this was the absolute first time she ever met Phil Spector.
Yes.
And I think you indicated the last time you saw the two of them, they were walking towards the elevator out the foundation room.
They were walking in the elevator.
Into the elevator.
Yes.
Okay. How long was Mr. Spector in the foundation room that evening? It's a very short time, wasn't it?
Yes.
Half an hour or something like that?
I could guesstimate. I can't give you an exact.
Okay. During that time, he did not spend the entire time in the company of Miss Clarkson, did he?
No.
Miss Clarkson was working, correct?
Correct.
She, like he, was attending to other patrons and other duties in the foundation.
There was nobody else at that point.
Okay, but she was not in his presence that entire half-hour time. She was off doing other things, correct?
Correct.
Likewise with you, correct?
Well, I was servicing him, and then when he was finished,
I'm sorry?
I was servicing him. So once he was finished and left, then I was doing my duties.
Okay, and that gets me to another point. You indicated that he placed an order and you brought the order to him, which was, I believe, a rum Bacardi 151, correct?
Correct.
Or a Bacardi rum 151, I don't know if I'm saying it right, and a bottle of just plain water, correct?
Correct.
And you served the Bacardi, correct?
Yes.
And you served the water,
Yes.
and then you left him and went about your duties, right?
We had a conversation before I left.
Yes, I understand that. He invited you to have a drink with him and invited.
After a while, yes.
Right. You indicated that you made up a lie to him or a story to him and decline, so that you would decline not going with him, correct? All right. It wouldn't have mattered who invited you to go home with him at that point. You would have declined. You were tired, right?
No, besides being tired, I just don't do those things.
Okay. So if it was anybody, Mr. Dixon, myself, Mr. Jackson, anybody, you wouldn't have accepted, correct?
Correct.
It was your professional decision not to do that, correct?
Yes.
You felt it wasn't in keeping with your role as a professional employee at the House of Blues, correct?
Not necessarily just an employee, but for myself.
Okay, for your personal self as well as in part for your professionalism?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you declined the invitation to have a drink, Mr. And when you graciously to accompany him home, he didn't get at you. He didn't yell or scream at you, did he?
No, I don't recall, the words after that.
Okay, but he didn't yell or scream at you. You do recall that.
He was loud, but I can't tell you that he was screaming. No.
Okay, but he wasn't angry with you.
Not angry with me. He
Okay.
just seemed angry in general.
Ms. Holkeen,
Yes.
you never before told the officers when they interviewed you back on February 7th, 2003, that he was angry in general, did you? You never made that statement to them.
I don't
I'm just asking you, did
Yes,
you ever?
Some facts on the evidence that they asked for that, so.
The question is, did she ever tell her that? I believe it was, she doesn't recall. Is that your answer?
Yes.
All right,
Okay.
next question.
All right. Now, as I understand it, the young lady who was with him that you described her having short blonde hair, correct?
Yes.
And I think you indicated she was, you couldn't recall what she was wearing, right?
Right.
And you did describe this, saying that it appeared to you that she felt she was a little bit out of place.
Yes.
Okay. Did you know that she was a waiter at the, well, let me back up and ask this way. Are you familiar with the Grill restaurant in Beverly Hills?
Excuse me?
The Grill is on the front working as a waiter.
Well, she can, I think the answer is probably obvious, but were you aware that she worked as a waitress there on that evening?
No.
You said you didn't recall how she was dressed.
Right.
Court's indulgence for a moment, please.
Certainly.
Now, let's talk about another subject. You indicated that, Jim, could we get the receipt up there, please? You indicated that when it came time to settling the tab, that you brought the check over to Mr. Spector, is that correct?
Yes.
And you presented it to him, correct?
Yes.
Up to that time, you had spoken with Mr. Spector, correct?
Yes.
He had placed an order with you, correct?
Yes.
You understood what he wanted, right?
Yes.
You understood that he invited you for a drink, correct?
Yes.
You understood that he invited you to his residence, correct?
Yes.
I think I'm talking about that, did you? And then, please. Okay. Now, Mr. Dixon has already through this, and Jen, if you could just highlight, please, the gratuity. The total bill was $13.50, correct?
Yes.
And the amount of the gratuity is $450, which is an extraordinarily generous gratuity, isn't it?
Yes.
That's why you wanted a section in, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I think you testified that when you took today, list the gratuity spoke to you about, isn't that correct? That he actually discussed with you how gratuity should be. Split up, correct?
Yes.
And in fact, he provided you instructions as to how the tip was to be distributed, correct?
Yes. He asked me to write it down.
Correct. You were his server that night, correct?
Yes.
You had the bill as well as a pen or a pencil to write it down, correct?
Yes.
All right. And let's spend a moment and talk about that. I understand it. You're now at his table. The bill was $13.50. Mr.
Yes.
He said that he wanted to give you Frady's $100, correct?
Yes.
And you said, okay.
Yes.
All right. He then said that he wanted to give you $100, correct?
I don't recall.
Okay. You recall talking to the officers back on February 7th, 2003, Detectives Tomlin and Fournier?
Yes.
Okay. If I showed you a portion of the transcript of your conversation, might it refresh your memory that he in fact wanted to give you $100 also?
Improper foundation.
The way you did it by reading it in front of the jury was inappropriate. If you read your remarks to the officers, do you think it might refresh your recollection on this issue?
It could.
All right, you may have.
May I approach, please?
Yes.
And the site is 26, 1 through 2.
Pardon, page 26.
I'm going to show you a single page out of the transcript. If you just read it to yourself, please, just lines 1 and 2.
Before I read it, it doesn't really state who's saying what.
Okay, let me get you the page before that.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.
While the witness is reading that, could you instruct her that to follow the procedure? The next question should be, does that refresh your recollection? Not have a read from others.
Yes.
I'm not going to have a read from this,
Okay.
refreshing recollection. I understand.
Thank you.
No wonder I couldn't find her when I looked at the body.
Have you now read that?
Yes.
Okay. Does that refresh your recollection that you told the officers in February when they interviewed you that you wanted to give you $100 also?
I'm reading that, but as I sit here and I think about where the total tip went to, I don't see how that could have been possible.
Well, let me ask you, you've read this. Are these your words?
They must be.
Okay. And he also wanted to give security $100, didn't he?
Yes.
And he also wanted to give the door host $100, didn't
Yes.
he? And he made the comment that the $100 for the door host wouldn't affect him, Mr. Spector, but it might affect, in terms of the door host, his life, correct?
Can you repeat that?
Sure. When Mr. Spector instructed you to write down $100 for the door host, he made the statement along with that instruction that it wouldn't affect him, Mr. Spector, but it might affect the door host, correct?
Yes.
So other than the $100 that you indicated you can't recall whether or not he instructed you to parcel out for yourself, you do remember the disbursements as to all the other individuals?
Well, no, I don't, because from what I'm understanding is that it's a total of $450. If I gave security $100 and I gave the hostess $100 and myself $100, that still leaves money left. Where did that go?
Well, Ms. Ho-King, let's go through this a second, okay? See if we can make it easier. There's a $450 tip, correct?
Yes.
You indicated you recall that he wanted to give you Frady's $100,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
He indicated that he wanted to give security $100, correct?
Yes.
The door host $100, correct?
Yes.
So that's $300 out of the $450, right?
Well, Euphrates is security, so
That's $300 out of the $450, correct?
yes.
If, I understand you don't recall him instructing you to parcel out $100 for yourself, but if we assume for a moment that that did happen, then that.
Okay, I get all the receipts from that night, everywhere he went, everything he did. I get that. Why does it matter who he wanted the tip spread out among? I understand laying foundation. I understand that we have to know where he went, what he did, what he drank. Why does it matter who he wanted the tip divided among? No wonder this trial was so long.
That would leave $50 left over, wouldn't it?
What I'm saying is I don't know exactly the exact amounts of where the monies went to.
It's not my question. My question is, did you have a conversation with Phil Spector, who instructed you to partition out the gratuity, the $450 gratuity that we see up there on the screen, to these various individuals? And
Yes, he named
okay,
it. Yes.
that's all I'm asking. Was that his instruction to you? I'm not asking how the money got divided.
I understand.
Okay,
And I
all I'm
said
asking
yes.
is, were those his words to you?
I already said yes.
And you understood him and you followed his instructions, correct?
As you can see, I did, yes.
Okay. Now, as I understand it, you indicated that he had requested another drink, is that right?
Yes.
A second drink. And you declined because it was past the time in which you could serve him the drink,
I
correct?
declined because management told me.
Pardon?
I declined because management advised me not to.
Okay. And who was it you spoke to in management?
Kim.
Okay. And let me ask you this. When you told Mr. Spector that you could not serve him a second drink, it was neither here nor them for him. It was no big deal, correct?
I don't recall.
Well, let's look at your answer to your transcript again, okay?
Okay.
Counsel, page 29, 24 to 35, and pages 59, 20 to 5. So let me get this for you, okay?
Okay.
There's two portions of the transcripts where this is referenced, Ms. Holking, so I'm going to show you one, then I'm going to show you the other. Let's start with the first one, okay?
Okay.
So I'm going to show you pages 29 and 30, and if you start on 29 down on line 24,
Okay.
and read it to yourself, please, and you can conclude your reading on the next page at line 5, all right?
Okay.
Have you read that to yourself?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I ask a question from here? Because I
Yes.
happen to know. And was that the answer to the question at that time, that for Mr. Spector, it was neither here nor there
Yes.
when you declined to serve him the second drink?
Yes.
And now I want to show you, Mr. Dixon, page 59. And I'm going to show you 59. I'm going to ask you to read from line 20 to 25 to yourself. Have you done that?
Yes.
And does that indicate, in your own words, for Mr. Spector, it was no big deal?
Yes.
And that's what you told the officers back in February 2003, correct?
Yes.
Before Ms. Clarkson and Mr. Spector left the premises, do I understand correctly your testimony that at some point she went and sat down with Mr. Spector? Is that correct?
She was in the room, yes.
No, I didn't ask if she was in the room. I asked you, did she sit down with him?
She sat on the arm of the chair. Yes.
Okay, well, that's sitting down, right?
And yes.
And that was in his presence, correct?
Yes.
All right. When you met with detectives, by the way, you and I have never spoken before, have we?
Yesterday we did.
Other than the greetings in the hallway, correct?
Yes.
That was it. Up till yesterday, you and I did not know each other, correct?
Correct.
And nobody from the defense counsel table ever has spoken with you, correct?
No.
Do you recall when you met with officers Fournier, I should say detectives Fournier and Tomlin, they told you, they instructed you that you didn't need to speak with the defense if you didn't want to. You recall that?
Yes.
Court's indulgence for a moment, please. Ms. Holkeen, you indicated that at that time there were no other patrons in the foundation room. It was only Mr. Spector. Is that right?
I can recall, yes.
Okay. Well, when you say before you were very clear on it, now you're saying as you recall, I want you to take a moment and think about this. Is it your testimony that he was the only patron in the foundation room that evening? If You don't know. I don't want you to guess.
At that time, yes.
Okay. So when he entered, there were no other patrons, and when he left, there were no other patrons. Only Mr. Spector and his guests.
I know when he left, when he entered, I don't know if there were other people there.
All
But
right,
I know when he left, he was the last one to leave.
all right. He was the last one to leave when he walked out, correct?
Yes,
But you can't tell us as you sit there now whether or not there were other patrons, other members in the foundation room when he arrived. Is that correct?
correct.
By the way, when you first saw Mr. Spector that evening, you first saw him in the foundation room. Isn't that
I
correct?
saw him in the hallway. He was not yet in the foundation room.
Okay. And then he came into the foundation room. Is that right?
Not until,
Not till Ms. Clarkson escorted him in, correct?
correct.
All right. You're not familiar with how he got to the hallway area, are you?
Correct.
If Mr. Spector, if we're reconstructing in terms of approximate times, if Mr. Spector was in the foundation room that evening about a half an hour, 30, 35 minutes, something like that, how much of that time would you say Ms. Clarkson was either directly talking to him or seated on the arm of the chair next to him talking to him?
I don't recall.
It was a very short time, wasn't it?
I don't
Of that
recall.
entire 30, 35 minutes.
Yeah, I don't recall.
What was she doing the other time when she wasn't speaking with Mr. Spector?
I don't know.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
redirect.
Thank you, nothing further.
All right, subject to recall, you're excused. Thank you for being here. You're not to discuss your testimony with anyone except the attorneys in the case. Thank you. You may step down. Let me just make an inquiry. Any of the jurors need a break? Because I'm going to keep going if you don't. I don't see anyone. Diana, you all right? We're going to keep going, try to make up for some of the lost time this morning. All right. Your next-
Okay. That's it for today. I am going to go lay down and put some heat on my hip. So, this was fun. We had fun this morning. So, I'm sorry about the Karen Reed docs. We can do that tomorrow. I don't know if my husband works tomorrow or not. I have no idea. I get confused about his schedule. He works every other Saturday and I can't keep up. So, thank you. This has been fun. We had a really fun day today. This was good. You cheered me up. I still hurt, but you cheered me up. But yeah, the nerve block has helped tremendously. And I think it's good that we now know that there is something going on with the hip. Well, I say we. My doctor doesn't know yet till I go till I go to the appointment and tell him. And that appointment is a week from Tuesday. So, it's always good when you know. Like when I got diagnosed, you're sending more documents? There's more? Good Lord. How many trees are they going to kill? Good Lord. When I got diagnosed with fibromyalgia, I was happy. And that sounds weird, but for 10 years, I knew there was something wrong with me. And I had gone to so many doctors trying to figure it out. And everybody was like, because I was in my early 20s, everybody was like, there's nothing wrong with you. You're a perfectly healthy young lady. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Don't understand. I don't have the energy that normal people do. I'm achy all the time. I have these weird mood swings all the time. Like, I knew there was something wrong because I wasn't normal. I wasn't like other people. I knew there was something not right. And when I finally got diagnosed, I was like, oh, thank God it's not in my head. Because the amount of doctors that made me feel like I was imagining my symptoms was insane. I mean, I was ready to go into a mental hospital because I just thought I was crazy. Yeah, that 10 years I went through that. 10 years. Or close to 10 years. And people telling me, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. And so I told when I had my last MRI, because I'm extremely claustrophobic, so they did it under anesthesia the last time. Because when they sedate me, I fall asleep and then the MRI is so loud that it wakes me up and then I jump. So they don't get a good picture. So I had to be completely knocked out. Um, yeah, go ahead and keep sending them. I was just saying, like, they're burying the court in all these motions. It's crazy. Um, so I told the anesthesiologist, I was like, at this point, I don't know if it's my back or my hip or both. And he said, well, usually hip and back go hand in hand. So now we know it is my hip. But it was my back too, because the nerve block worked. Like, the other day I was helping Travis with I hate it when he's like, come here and hold this for me, when he needs extra hands for something. And I'm standing there and I'm holding something and it's not heavy or whatever. I have to stand. And I'm like, hurry up, Travis, hurry up. I gotta sit down. Hurry up, hurry up. And this time I didn't have to do that. I just stood there and held it. And I don't know how long it was, but it doesn't have to be long. It can be like a couple minutes in and I'm going, hurry up, I gotta sit. And this time I didn't. I just stood there and held it. And I was fine. And when he got done, I was like, did you notice I didn't have to sit down, honey? But now it's the hip. And so I know now, I don't know if I'm gonna have to get another MRI. I don't know what, maybe he can just try a steroid injection in the hip. I don't know where we go from here, but at least I know that, like, okay, so we've isolated the back problem. Thank God I don't have to have back surgery. I don't want to get my hip replaced. It's not that bad though. It's not like joint replacement yet. My dad had his hip replaced, and I don't know if I know my grandmothers had their knees replaced. It's so bad when, like, you have a family history of this stuff, so your future. So I just hope I don't have to get it replaced. And I've taken care of patients that have had hip replacements, so I know. I don't want to do that. That's bad. Recovery from that is long and not fun. So, okay, well, I'm gonna go back to bed, rest my hip, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Oh, I'm so sorry. I have a couple of cousins with that. That's in my family too, but I've tested negative for all of those autoimmune things. Although they don't know with fibromyalgia, they keep changing what they think fibromyalgia is. It's anti-inflammatory. No, it's autoimmune. No, it's this or that, or it's neuro. No, it's muscle. No, it's whatever. Like, they don't know. Um, yeah, it is. It's hereditary. I'm not trying to scare you, but it is hereditary. It runs in families. So, my mom, my mom said that she had it, but I don't know if she was ever officially diagnosed. Because my mom was a piece of work. But I don't even want to go there. That's too long of a conversation. But my cousins on my mom's side of the family, I have 2 or 3 cousins that have it, and I have a cousin that has lupus. So all those autoimmune type stuff is on my mom's side of the family, and we all of the ones that have those, we also have fibromyalgia. I got lucky. I say lucky. I don't have the autoimmune diseases, but I got cancer. So, but I still say that I got cancer from the Roundup that my husband used. My husband and my neighbor came over on a side by side with a big giant tank on the back of it and a long, because he did it on his crops in his farm, my neighbor did, and then brought it to our house. Great big giant tank on the back of a side by side with a long nozzle, and was just riding around spraying it all over the place while I was outside. And because I didn't actually spray it myself, I'm not eligible in the lawsuit thing that's going on now. I talked to 2 different lawyers, and that pisses me off. But you might not get it. It's not like a given that you're going to get it because it's a genetic thing. You might not have the gene. You might not have gotten the gene from her, that whatever the gene is, I don't know. But and there's a lot of good medicine out now that controls it really well to the point that you don't have a lot of major problems. I was on Skyrizi for a while for my um, psoriasis, and I swear I thought I had psoriatic arthritis, and the tests were negative. But I figured because I had psoriasis and we have the autoimmune diseases in my family, that and that's what psoriasis is. It's autoimmune. And they put me on the Skyrizi, even though I tested negative for the psoriatic arthritis. I didn't hurt as bad when I was on the Skyrizi. And I thought, I don't care what that test says. I think I had it, and the Skyrizi's helping. Well, I'm not on the Skyrizi anymore because my dermatologist claims I owe them money. And so, because they said I missed an appointment, and I didn't miss an appointment, I called and rescheduled the appointment. And now they say I owe them like 90 something dollars, and I don't. So they won't see me anymore. So I can't. And I was getting my Skyrizi for free from the company, because those any type of shots, topical medications, anything like that, doesn't matter that you need them. If they're not a pill, they will cost you an arm and a leg. This is like, I forgot how much the medicine was. It was, but there was no way I could afford it. So the company was actually giving it to me for free. And now I can't get it because you have to go through a dermatologist, and my dermatologist won't see me anymore because they claim I missed an appointment. And so I owe them like 90 something dollars now. And I'm like, I'm not a rich housewife that wants Botox. I'm not. It's a medical condition. It's, like, why do dermatologists have that mindset? Like, I don't know. That's another conversation. No, sweetie, I'm not, because I don't feel well. So I'm going to go lay down. But I'm going to try to stream tomorrow. I was going to do the Karen Reed docs today, but I'm going to do those tomorrow because my hip hurts really bad. And I also kind of feel like I might have another one of those flares coming on, where I have that weird pain, that chest back thing. And I don't want that to happen while I'm trying to read. Although I think that feeling passed, but I still want to go lay down because I just don't feel good. So hopefully I'll feel better tomorrow. I thought that rest on Monday fixed it, but now I'm feeling icky again. But it could be like you were saying, because it's cold in the morning and then it gets warm in the, like yesterday, because we need the new AC unit in our house, but we can't afford it right now, so we got that window unit air conditioning. So it's in the living room, and I turned it on the other day, and day before yesterday I turned it on during the day, and I didn't realize that nobody turned it off. Because my husband is used to having, when he lived, before we got married, the house he lived in, he only had a wall unit, a window unit air conditioner, and it didn't, it wasn't like, this one's like a smart air conditioner. It has an app, you can hook it up to your Wi-Fi, or I don't know what all it does. And so it works like a regular air conditioner with a thermostat. Like, you set it on the temperature you want it to be, and it will, it will go on and off when it gets to the temperature, like a air conditioner does. So every time it goes off, he's freaking out. He's like, it froze up. It froze up all right. I'm like, no, Travis, it did not freeze up. It got to the temperature it's supposed to be, and then it shuts itself off like a regular air conditioner. And he goes, oh. So yesterday, I kept hearing something running, and I was like, what is running? what is that? And then finally I realized it was the air conditioner because nobody had turned it off. It had turned itself off because it got cold. So it got cold during the night. And yesterday morning it was cold. And I was like in my jacket yesterday morning and I took it off when it warmed up. But then I kept hearing something running. And then I realized the air conditioner was kicking on and off because it had warmed up during the day. So that could be, see, like I got my jacket on now and the air conditioner is not running because it's cool in here. So I think that could be why I'm not feeling good because it's cold right now. And then and it's almost noon. In a couple hours, that air conditioner is going to be kicking off and on, and I'm going to be burning up again. And I think that might be why I'm not feeling good today. Although yesterday it didn't bother me, but today it is. I don't know. Yeah, that's. And where do you live, Carla? One of us should be out of Slayer. Yeah, that's pretty much what it's doing here, too. Oh, you live in Illinois, though, right? Wow. That's like Florida weather. Okay, guys, I'm going to. Yes, Judy, you're not old enough to be my mother. You're old enough to be my older sister. Quit mothering me. Okay. All right. This has been 3 hours. I'm done. I'm tired. I'm going back to bed. Bye. I love you all so, so much. I will see you later. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.